Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Sarah.
And you should listen to
What's New?
Nancy Drew.
Come get a clue.
Boop, boop, doo.
What's New, Nancy Drew is a weekly podcast where we recap the latest episode of the CW show Nancy Drew.
Yeah, so put your sleuthing brain on and join us for a good time.
Hello, everyone. Screenplay Archaeology host KiramidHead here. Before we get into today's episodes, I just want to get some intro stuff out of the way. First things first, we are now part of the Fandom Lim Media podcast network, so I'm going to link their site down below. And that's why you would have just heard a promo for another podcast, because they're another one of the shows on the network. And as per usual, if you like the show and you'd like to know more, you can check out our social media pages on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and even Instagram now. The show also has a Patreon if you're willing to gift money, but you don't really need to if you don't want to. And we also have a Discord server, which you can join if you want to chat with, the group members there. So that link is going to be down below as well. So yeah, sit back, guys, and enjoy the show. All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Screenplay Archaeology podcast, the first in a long time. My apologies. I'm your host, KiramidHead.
And I am your guest and or co-host, Jake Camara of Hot Quality Content, and it's also partially my fault as well.
But also my fault largely just for being lazy and not being, a little more proactive.
Yeah, no, we're in the same boat with the channel. I've been highly distracted with non-video material.
Yeah, and I've been distracted with real life.
Yeah, that happens to the best of us.
But yeah, for those of you who remember the Wolfman episode back in January, we said something at the end of that.
We sure did. We said, gosh, this script is my favorite. But we also said we would come back and I would finally, after probably at least a year, I would finally get around to reading and reviewing the 2017 Mummy scripts that didn't come out, highly locked down, before the movie was actually made. So we have the 2013 and 2014 drafts that were kind of predating what was about to become their Dark Universe plan.
Yes, I don't think they had any plans for a universe when these were written. And the 2013 script actually leaked before the movie, because I remember having it in 2016.
Oh, wow.
And okay. I read it.
It didn't really spoil much.
No, it didn't. Because I remember reading it back then and hating it and going, well, at least it looks like it's a good thing they've changed the movie. And no.
No. It makes you wish that you saw that script.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm much more fond of these now than I was then.
I guess by comparison, anything looks better,
I mean, we even said that Wolfman script was better.
Oh, man, dude, that Wolfman script was with the pheromones that are released to make women automatically love you. Oh,
Aloha.
Oh, that's a deep cut. You got to have watched that episode to know why that's absolutely hilarious.
Yes, it is. It is one of the funniest things in that.
Not intentionally.
No, it's not. And so before we go into any kind of like the usual background shit, I'm just going to give a quick synopsis of what these are about. So both drafts follow the same story. There's like a bunch of differences between them. But you'll see some broader beats of what the movie ended up being, but it's quite a bit different. So what this one is it's about the leader of a team of Navy SEALs who ends up inside the tomb of this ancient Assyrian king called Ashurbanipal. Ends up waking him up, and they have to stop him from destroying the world. That's the plot in a nutshell.
You went good with the pronunciation. I just called him Ash after a couple pages.
I mean, it's phonetic as far as I know.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'll trust your lexicon on ancient Egypt more than mine. So
not even ancient Egypt in this one. It's ancient Assyria.
Yeah, true. Very true. Important distinction.
Which is very strange coming from a Universal Mummy movie, that it has basically nothing to do with any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But so
they wanted to switch it up.
Yeah, I guess so. That or they just said, hey, John Spates, go crazy. Write what you want to write.
Yeah, that's probably more likely.
Because he clearly put like a ton of research into this thing, going by the...
He did. The last like couple pages are like just him writing this like weird manifesto, like this is how the culture was, and my script is now that, or something.
Yeah, basically that's him showing, hey, I did my research. At least I'm assuming he did, because some of it I couldn't find any information on. Now, whether or not it's stuff that's just not on the internet, he found it in books or something like that. Maybe that's the case.
Sounds more likely that it's just like backstory in the fictional scripts or something along those lines. I don't know.
Because I mean, this Ashurbanipal is a real guy.
Okay, good selection.
And so let's briefly go over the Mummy movies, shall we?
Oh, please, yeah, let's do it.
So I really, really like the first Mummy movie with Boris Karloff.
I really enjoy it as well. It's probably the best one. And I'm not even just talking about the originals. I'm talking about it's probably the best Mummy movie that Universal has made, including the Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, it's top two. There's two that I think are like good.
Yeah, I was never into the. Well, we'll get to the reboots, but like I've seen them all, obviously, and the only one to me that stands out as like this is probably their best is literally the first one they made in like 1932 or 5.
32.
Yep. And that was a really cool concept, too. He has, like, heart attack powers where you can just reach out and you have a heart attack. Like, that's a pretty cool thing. You don't see that in a lot of adaptations nowadays.
But yeah, I think it's it's very different from their other movies, too, from that period, because it's a very atmospheric-based piece. And
yeah, I think that's why I like it.
There's
so
just something entrancing about the vibe. And, of course, Karloff nails the role.
When you say entrancing, you're of course talking about the iconic shot with like his eyes lighting up and it's a big zoom.
Yeah,
in.
of course, that's one of them.
That's like the big deal. Like whenever people talk about that movie, that's the shot that always comes up, and it's great. It's so good. I'm glad they did it.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
The Mummy kind of used the close up to really like drive home like the terror and the hypnotism of that character, and I was like, oh wow, that's early example. It's pretty cool.
But no, it's just a really well-directed film. It's the guy who did the cinematography on Dracula directing it. And one thing that's actually really kind of interesting is that it's one of the only movies where the damsel in distress saves herself at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah, I never really thought about that. Yeah,
because like the two guys, including literally Van Helsing, they show up and they almost get their asses handed to them, and then she just goes, "Hey, Isis, help me out!" Zap.
Yeah, literally.
So that one what's interesting is that it's known as one of the big sort of Universal franchises even before the reboots.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it had iconic status, but the iconic image of the Mummy doesn't really come from that movie.
No, not at all, because the Mummy's wrapped in bandages, limping around, one arm extended thing is all of the sequels to that movie.
It's all the sequels and, like, the first 30 seconds of the first movie.
Yeah, where he just gets out of the tomb, but it's mostly, like, alluded to.
Yeah, you don't even see it. You just see him move a little bit, and you see his hand come in from off camera.
Yeah, literally. And you see, like, the toilet paper dragging on the ground, and then the guy laughs.
Well, I mean, since when is toilet paper stuck to someone's foot not funny?
That's an excellent point. That's the only way to interpret that scene.
Well, yeah, and then you get 8 years later, and, like, a regime change at Universal, you get The Mummy's Hand, which, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but I don't mind that one. I think it's okay.
That is the one with, is his name John Carradine, who would play Dracula?
No, that is The Mummy's Ghost.
Okay, then I can tell you for a fact, I remember 0% of the
This is the one that starts with Emperor Palpatine.
Oh, he falls down the big stairs.
Yeah, the stairs are at the end of the movie.
Those stairs were way too large. Why would you build stairs that large?
Because it's a temple.
Oh yeah, goodbye. I rescind my entire argument.
But I think it is very obviously like a B movie. It's meant to come up on like the bottom of the double bill. But I think
that's weird.
I think it's okay put together. I like the makeup on the Mummy, who isn't Lon Chaney Jr. in this one, and I really like the close-up shots where his eyes are blacked out. I think that's super creepy.
Yeah, it is super creepy, but I don't think that movie has any real impact.
It doesn't really, except for the iconic Mummy image.
Yep, yeah. Everyone associates now with the Mummy idea, but really it's just like a dude wearing a fez. Like, it's that's actually the original Mummy. Is that guy?
He's a wrinkled old guy in the fez.
Wrinkled old guy. I guess the limping toilet paper was scarier. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess not. And so then it apparently did well enough to get 3 sequels.
Yep, it sure did. And they're so similar to each other.
It's just The Mummy's Hand again, and again, but in Louisiana.
Yeah, and you're kind of exaggerating, but A, you're right in the plot, and B, you're literally right. They use footage from the other movies just replayed in new context and pass it off as new
I
footage.
would say the worst Mummy movie is the second one, The Mummy's Tomb, because that's the one that is like 15 straight minutes of stock footage.
Oh my god. I can't stand that stuff. It's so annoying. It's like, why am I caring enough to watch this movie if you're not going to care enough to make it?
And it's also repeating the stock footage from the original Mummy that the Mummy's hand used for its flashbacks, where they like replaced all the close-ups with the new actor.
Yeah, it's a flashback back. It's weird.
And I'm not going to go into any detail on these because I barely remember. There's not anything really to remember about them.
No, definitely not.
But I mean, The Mummy's Ghost has like the interesting kind of downer ending, which is really, that's the John Carradine one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really all you can say about that one, is that the ending is interesting.
Yeah, that's the one I remembered a little bit.
The most interesting thing about the movies put together is that if you add up the amount of time that's supposed to pass between each movie, the fourth one takes place in like 1995.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because The Mummy's Tomb is The Mummy's Hand is 1940. 30 years pass until The Mummy's Tomb.
Oh, they're doing that.
Yeah, and then like I think like Mummy's Ghost is like not long after that, and then like 25 more years happen between Ghost and Curse.
Yeah, that is so weird to think about. It's almost like the writers did not give a gosh darn crap about any of the lore.
They somehow predicted that we would be in a war again in 1970.
Yeah, that's a broken clock being right twice a day.
The fucking funniest scene in The Mummy's Tomb is when the guy gets his fucking draft letter and it plays like this like over the top military music while he's reading it.
Yeah, that's, oh god. Oh man.
But no,
I'm remembering parts of those movies now because of you. I do not forgive you for this.
But I will say this, is that the makeup got a lot worse with Lon Chaney Jr. Like like Jack Pierce, like the mask he made, because he's wearing like a mask on his face, I think. And the mask just doesn't look very good.
What's really annoying too is that like the Mummy, who is not a great character, is the only interesting character in this whole series. All the characters that aren't the Mummy are like these weird caricatures where they say like quick quote unquote witty cartoon dialogue to each other until the Mummy shows up.
And then you have the bad guy who is the same character in all four movies, just slightly different.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna summon the Mummy, and you're gonna be the bride, and it's a big thing. And where's the scepter of the staff of the crown of the?
And so those happened, and it's interesting how just Universal gave no shits about the Mummy, because they made a huge deal in their last few years about making like these monster rally crossover movies, and they never included the Mummy, who was one of their big guys.
I've always wondered this. Like, you have all of these characters, you have all of this mythology. I'm not going to tangent too much because I feel so strongly about this, but they have all of these movies that are movies about their own separate characters, all of which are immortal, all of which keep going back in sequels, and all of which can interact with each other. And they do it, Dracula, Frankenstein, and Wolfman, and they never interact in those crossover movies because Dracula dies halfway through the first one, and then the second half, the other two show up. And the only one where they actually interact with each other in any way is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which is a comedy.
Yeah, it's just weird they didn't include him. It's especially since he got more movies than some of the monsters that did. He had more movies than Dracula, more solo movies than the Wolfman. The only one who had more was Invisible Man, weirdly enough.
Yeah, how cool would it have been if Mummy showed up in one of the House movies? Like, that would have been sick.
House of Frankenstein had the perfect in for that. He could have been like an exhibit in the carnival.
He totally could have. They could have put them all in there. Or make one movie with like a ton of them. Do like your version of Captain America Civil War where like Creature shows up to fight Frankenstein for a bit. Like, that would be pretty cool. I don't know.
The Mummy doesn't even get to cross over with the other monsters in Abbott and Costello. He gets his own movie like almost a decade later, and it's maybe the worst one of the worst Abbott and Costellos I've seen.
Easily one of the worst ones. Easily one of the worst attempts at comedy I've ever seen. There's like, I think the funniest part was in Abbott, or no, it was Costello. I mixed them up. Ate that like jewel or something and like swallowed it whole.
Yeah, he chews it.
But like that, the extent of me laughing at that was me going.
I can enjoy like the dumb slapstick moments, but it's like you can tell they were running on fumes by that point, because They did one more movie after that, and then they broke up because they felt that the comedy was getting stale. But they were supposed to do separate things for a little while and then have a reunion, but then Costello died.
I think going the direction of comedy was not a smart move. It worked for Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein, but doing that with every monster individually was a critical mistake because you didn't maintain the quality.
You haven't seen this one, actually, but the 1959 Hammer Mummy, it's a remake of mainly the sequels, but they basically have mashed elements of all 5 movies together into one really, actually pretty good movie. Christopher Lee is just like an awesome mummy. But yeah, so The Mummy then next appeared in an unofficial movie, The Monster Squad.
Yes, yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't know if you would because it's not Universal, but that is his next Universal Monster appearance, and it's just in a henchman role. Great.
And he gets killed with an arrow.
He gets killed with an arrow, of all things.
I actually really enjoy that movie, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun if you're, like, into that kind of 80s cheese. Yeah, I guess I'm coming at it from the angle of, like, these are the greatest horror characters in movies ever, and they could have made so much better movies for longer, and they just chose.
Interesting, it actually started in 87, them trying to do a remake of The Mummy. And I did a whole ass episode about this when the 2017 movie came out. So if you want any information about all those unmade Mummy scripts, go listen to that.
I actually might.
And so you get to the actual remakes of The Mummy, and we don't have to spend that much time on these because everybody else has.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like the 1999 movie. I mean, it's not just a nostalgia thing. I think that one holds up pretty well. There's like some weird like inconsistencies in the plot that have kind of fallen out of that kind of stood out to me over the last few years. Like there's like some stuff in there that doesn't really make sense. Like the whole thing about him bringing the 10 plagues of Egypt and like possibly ending the world is kind of just brushed aside, and it's made worse by the sequel that never brings it up.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when he returns in the titular film, that kind of doesn't happen at all.
Yeah, and also, I think the reincarnation thing was in the script at some point, and they took it out late, because there's still kind of hints towards it. And also, he's like about to sacrifice Evie at the end, and he says, and I shall become invincible. You're already invincible.
He's like the most invincible of all the Universal monsters.
Mummy Returns, I used to really like that when I was a kid. That I can still watch, but it does not hold up at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not a big fan on either, to be personally honest here. I mean, Brendan Fraser's great. He's doing so great and fun in the role, but I was never drawn to those movies.
The one thing I'll give that movie that I think is kind of an inspired moment is how Imhotep goes out at the end. Because he goes through all that shit for the princess, right? And then she just leaves him to die at the end. And he realizes, like, well, I've wasted so much time, and just kind of kills himself.
I'm definitely willing to rewatch the Brendan Fraser movies because in light of having seen, I rewatched 2017's Mummy for this, and in light of reading these scripts here, I'm like, wow, maybe like there's more to, in comparison to these, there's like way better things going on.
I liked Tomb of the Dragon Emperor when it came out. When I rewatched it, like 4 or 5 years later, it went so far down for me. I do not like that movie at all.
I didn't hate it. I thought it was fun. It's the best Brendan Fraser Mummy movie. Super outlier.
Send your hate mail to Hot Quality Content.
Please do, but like, I don't know, like the first two felt like corny enough to be dumb, but they took themselves really seriously. Where like in the third one, there's this group of like Yetis, and they like play football, and they do like the goal thing, and I'm like, that's...
And what really gets me about the third one is not only does the comedy just go sharply downhill, where like the height of the humor is spank my ass, Rick, spank my ass. And everybody is written just obnoxiously out of character in that. And then you just have the fucking awful romantic subplot with their kid.
The romantic part is kind of dumb. Again, this is like a 5 out of 10 in my mind. There's a lot of flaws. But the kid himself is one of the better, let's give this character a kid so he can keep going with the franchise. Better than the kid, Jai Courtney in Die Hard, and he's better than Shia LaBeouf in
Do you realize who you are comparing this guy to?
Well, do you realize we're reading the Mummy scripts in comparison to 2017's Mummy?
Yes.
You know, like, this is what we're doing.
But I mean, you get the awful scene where he's like comparing the size of his gun to his dad's gun.
A little bit funny. Okay, humor is subjective. There's no point in...
I think Jet Li is wasted because he doesn't do any like martial arts in it. He turns into a really shitty looking CGI Ghidorah, and then he turns into one of the things from Where the Wild Things Are, And he goes into a cave,
Yeah.
plays with some balls, and that's basically it.
Yeah, like we all do on a Saturday night. But no, I really appreciate like the transformations and stuff. I'm a big fan of like monsters and creatures and stuff. But like that's Jet Li. You could have him do a little bit of action beyond just like I'm gonna shoot fire VFX from my hands or whatever the hell. Yeah, no.
I guess Mummy 3 just did really badly.
Oh, yeah. Well, they chose not to continue, even though the end was like, I'm going to go to Peru with the next adventure.
Yeah,
And they just
yeah,
didn't.
and then the next movie was apparently called Rise of the Aztec, and Aztecs aren't from Peru, dumbass.
Yep. They
Ugh.
rose and went to Peru. That's the backstory.
They went on vacation.
Yep.
Because, everything south of the border is exactly the same.
Of course. Yeah, why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, and so that bomb, I don't think it out and out bombed. I think it underperformed. And then
Yeah.
Wolfman bombed.
Oh, yeah, 2010?
Yeah,
Oh, man.
because that was mainly because of Universal fucking around during production. 2 years after that is when they announced that they're going to do a Mummy reboot they mentioned we're going to do a reboot of The Mummy and a reboot of Van Helsing. No mention of a shared universe yet.
Nope, not yet.
And with Alex Kurtzman producing,
Oh,
your
yeah.
favorite guy.
Which, hey, he is a TV writer, so I see their logic because they wanted like an ongoing thing.
That is where John Spates comes in with his draft. And what was interesting is that it was reported in the summer of 2013 that they had a different writer writing an alternate draft in case this one didn't satisfy. It was
That's true.
Billy Ray who did. He's done a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And so he was doing one, and around this time they attached another one of your favorite guys, Len Wiseman, to direct.
Oh my god. Come on, man. I mean, do I hate 2017's Mummy. If it could be worse, it would be because Lens Flairman directed it.
I mean, I like some of his movies, not many.
The Underworlds are a guilty pleasure. I know they're pretty bad, but I sure do like
The first one's decent, at least, and then the second one, it starts getting stupid. So this draft is roughly dated July 2013. That's exactly when Wiseman fell off.
Okay.
So yeah, he left to focus on the Sleepy Hollow TV show.
Yeah. Maybe he read the script and went like, this is too good for me. I'm out.
Okay, so that's roughly about time we should go into this draft, which is roughly dated based off of the document properties, because this one doesn't have a title page as let me pull it up. July 11th, 2013.
Or alternatively, November 7th. Hard to tell.
No, it doesn't. Oh yeah, possibly. No, it's July 11th because that's how I do the dates.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
And it says created July 11th, 2013 in the document properties. But
Okay,
but,
Mr.
But
Fancy.
alternatively, it could be August 9th because the PDF was modified on August 9th of 2013.
Ooh, Spates was like, I got a couple more ideas.
And so this thing begins in the Persian Gulf underwater, and we have a Navy SEAL team because, Navy SEALs. And we're led by team leader, this is your favorite name, Tyler Colt,
Damn
who
it.
always remains cool under pressure.
Oh my god, the descriptive in both scripts of this, the description are like Tyler Colt, so cool, buff, ripped, jacked, very handsome, talented, better than you. And then it just continues.
I mean,
Like, what?
that fucking name is the worst part of this script right there.
Oh man, it's tough. Yeah.
I mean, you might as well have just named him Tommy Gunn.
Yeah, literally.
But you can't do that because Rocky V already had a character named Tommy Gunn.
Very, very true.
And so they're traveling in a small submarine, and I took down all their names, even though they're not important. So we have Monroe, Barrows, Gomez, Hackett, Carver, Weiss, and the submarine is being piloted by Vale. Now, Vale is semi-important because that becomes Jake Johnson's character.
Oh, I was gonna ask, like, why'd you write down all these names? They don't come up again. They're not useful. But that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah. I pointed them out because, hey, that's Jake Johnson's character, who, interestingly enough, there's like a weird like inconsistency with his character where in the credits he's Sergeant Vale, but in the movie he's Corporal Vale.
Wow. I previously really respected the lore of 2017's Mummy, but now I'm just completely broken. I think it's a bad movie. You've convinced me.
We keep finding new ways in which it's bad. And by the way, I rewatched this back in February. I remembered it being bad. I did not remember it being so fucking boring.
As I told you, maybe on or off recording, I read these scripts like a week ago when I finally decided to like get back in this, and I rewatched The Mummy in the background while doing so, and man, it is so like lifeless. No pun intended, because she's like undead, but like it's so boring and there's nothing to it.
Yeah, and like
We-
the dialogue
yeah.
is all pat exposition or just like a bad quip.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I didn't even watch a movie. It's a weird feeling after watching them.
And there's like 6 writers credited on that movie. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
just like the Lord intended.
We'll talk more about that towards the end. And okay, and Sue, they hook up to an underwater oil pipeline, and after gearing up in dry scuba suits and dive helmets, they flood the sub. Tyler opens the hatch, and Hackett cuts the pipeline open, and they go and they swim through the pipeline with like a propulsion vehicle into Iraq. And I think that's actually an attention-grabbing way to open it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool visual.
Honestly, it's not that bad. Like, this opening scene is better than I think it would have ended up if it were shot. Yeah.
Especially if Kurtzman ended up directing this.
Like, regardless, like, how it reads, like, and you're gonna get to it, but, like, it's kind of an action scene, and they, like, turn on each other and stuff. It's super interesting, but, like, I don't know, like, 80% of modern directors would probably ruin it with, like, too many cuts and super dark color correction and questionable CGI and all kinds of fun stuff that just makes everything bad.
Lens flares if Len Wiseman stuck on board.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Seriously, he is the only guy who can have a lens flare happen in a room with no lights.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, this is something that Special Warfare has wanted to try for ages, and Tyler is just so much of a bro. He's like, it's never been done before. I want to do it.
Yeah, that's great. Feels like I'm really there. You know?
And so we get to see the mission control in Virginia at Langley Air Force Base, where we get like there's an intelligence officer named McCall, who's the one who's like overseeing it over the computer. And there's like an Air Force intelligence officer, an Air Force. There's like guys from all over the place coming in, and there's like CIA people, and they bring in a senator who I swear is only here for exposition, who just keeps like repeating back what's told to him, like nuclear weapons in Iraq.
He's such an unimportant character. I forgot he existed, and I just read these scripts.
Yeah, I reread them, and I'm like, God, I hate this guy. And so the team is being sent in because satellites spotted a faint radiation signature inside Iraq, consistent with uranium refinement, and ground-penetrating radar revealed a bunker of some sort that the Iraqi government is like, that ain't ours.
Yep. Yeah, it's a pretty cool way to like be like, oh, there's radiation, so we're mildly interested, like for political purposes, but like it's actually this super elaborate supernatural situation.
Yeah, that's actually, and the idea of like the supernatural having like a radiological signature is something you kind of see in like ghost literature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. With people saying like, oh, there's dark energy in this house. It's haunted. I can exercise it or whatever. Like this, that's a big thing.
Yeah, and the SEAL team, they've been sent in to determine if it's terrorists, and the senator very helpfully goes, Al-Qaeda making nukes?
Mm-hmm.
And the team soon emerges from a hatch on the pipeline. They presumably passed James Bond from Diamonds Are Forever on the way there.
Oh yeah, of course.
And
naturally.
Soon remove their diving gear. They retrieve their weapons from the dry bags. Tyler leads.
And then they go, and then they go fight the James Bond crew from Thunderball, where they're all underwater with the harpoon guns.
Well, it's the desert, so it would be Never Say Never Again.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Like Jaws from Spy Who Loved Me shows up.
Pick your flavor of Thunderball.
Tyler leads them into the desert, passing an Assyrian boundary stone carved with images of demons and death, which they don't even see. And they soon are within sight of the bunker's entrance, where 2 flatbed drugs are parked. And a closer inspection shows they only have digging tools in the back, and there's this fucking ridiculous line in the script where it goes, not exactly the tools of Tom.
Yep.
And what looks like a concrete bunker entrance is in fact the door to an ancient tomb made from carved stone. And Tyler reports this and says, the radiation count is at 0, but they're like, no, go in anyways.
Yep, naturally.
And the team enters the tomb, moving through a passageway decorated with carvings of war and brutality before entering the antechamber, where they find the bodies of 7 desert tribesmen. And Tyler notes they're not terrorists, they're tomb robbers, and it looks like they killed each other. And then they start hearing a whispering in a strange language with no noticeable source, and they continue down a passage. And so back at Mission Control, the speakers get all staticky, McCall plugs in headphones, and hears the same whispering chant. And in the tomb, the SEALs emerge from the passage into a labyrinth where Tyler starts to order them to split into 2 teams. But that's when a trembling Vale and Weiss start chanting, and Monroe soon follows. The 3 men raise their guns and open fire. They kill Carver, who gets back up right before Tyler's eyes, and then Carver, with glowing eyes and a glowing vapor coming from his mouth, attacks Tyler, seemingly immune to bullets, and Tyler is forced to pull the pin on one of Carver's grenades, which sets him alight. So it's a cool little action scene.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. Like I keep saying, it's more interesting than I think it would have ended up.
And, well, we saw how it ended up. Airstrike.
Well, this fucking scene wasn't in the goddamn movie.
Airstrike.
Airstrike. I am the airstrike, bitch.
Tom Airstrike Cruise.
Goddamn. Damn that movie. Dude, he says airstrike so many times in the opening of The Mummy 2017, I started laughing. It didn't even mean to. It's great.
And so Tyler retreats from his possessed men in the maze, shouting an order to fall back. Barrows makes it back to the antechamber, but gets attacked and killed by the undead tomb robbers who have popped up. And back at mission control, McCall is confronted by the airman who's on security duty because he's like trembling and sweating and muttering in the language. And so McCall grabs the airman's gun and then puts it to his own head and shoots himself.
Yep.
And so back in the tomb, Tyler backs out of a passageway when his night vision goggles get overpowered by static, tears them off. The room is suddenly lit by flame, and Tyler finds himself in the sarcophagus chamber with a black iron sarcophagus resting on a dais with 2 pillars of fire on braziers at either end of the chamber. The sarcophagus is carved with cuneiform writing as well as Egyptian symbols, and 6 iron clasps seal it shut. As a pillar of fire behind Tyler takes the form of a cruel face, he has a vision of himself placing his hand on the sarcophagus. As if in a trance, he walks towards it and places his hand on a hand-shaped carving called a hamsa, and is shaken out of the trance when a spike pricks his hand and moves back into the sarcophagus, leaving a star-shaped wound on his palm.
Which is relevant for the plot later.
Yes, and it actually is a much more sensible reason for why he is the chosen one than Tom Cruise was.
Easily. Hands down.
And Tyler gets another vision of himself, this time removing the clasps and opening the sarcophagus, but he fights through it this time and by jabbing his thumb into his wounded palm. Ugh.
Great.
So that's like a nasty moment. Ugh.
Sure is.
Tyler turns and runs as the face in the fire appears enraged, fights off an undead tomb robber. Apparently all the other guys just fucking disappeared with a flare before escaping the tomb.
Yep, naturally.
And we get our title screen.
Yay.
And jumps ahead 2 years as Tyler, now an unkempt long-haul trucker, pulls his rig into a truck stop, so he's now a wanderer like fucking Jack Reacher.
Yeah, no, the opening scene that just concluded, I'll say this. I thought when reading it, like, it shouldn't have been the main character. It should have been someone we thought was gonna be the main character, and then he himself turns undead, and everybody we meet kills each other, and then becomes the Mummy's army. Like, that would have been so badass.
The psycho approach.
The psycho approach, because then you don't expect it. Whereas I'm reading this scene, it's like, yeah, it's interesting, but this is our main guy. It's like, so, but even if I didn't read the script where it described him as badass and handsome, like, if you're watching the movie, you know this is the main guy. So why not flip that on its head?
Or focus on all of them a bit so you don't know who comes out?
Exactly. That would have been more interesting. But oh well.
And so he's in a truck stop having trouble staying awake and ordering extra coffee. He nods off. And he has a dream, so yes, the endless dream sequences from the movie are in this, but they're better.
Goddamn hard-cut nightmare scenes, man. Like, every single one ends with, like, the mummy's gonna get you, and then he wakes up and he's, like, got his pants down, like, in the middle of the street, like, some random, like, God,
and
I'm sick
and
of
it's all the same footage every time.
I'm sure.
So Tyler's dream, which is shot entirely as a point of view, is of a brutal Assyrian battlefield. He looks down, revealing a muscled body stuck full of arrows. And the POV is then lying in a bed as women pull the arrows from his body. And then in a temple, lying on a slab of stone surrounded by Egyptian priests, the iron sarcophagus nearby. A priest lifts a polished copper pot of hot bitumen tar over, and in the reflection, the battle-scarred face of the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, the same as the face in the fire, is revealed just before the tar is poured over him. That's actually a pretty cool dream sequence.
It is pretty interesting. I don't think it would have been approved by the studios. It's very creepy.
Yeah, and the thing about the dream sequences in these scripts is that he gets new information from them every time. It's not the same footage.
Yep, that's somewhat useful, but still don't like it.
So you don't like dream sequences, period.
I don't like the hard cutting to the dream sequences. Just seems like a very easy way to be like, well, we need more mummy footage early on when there's no mummy happening, so let's just shove it in his head.
So he wakes from the nightmare in the diner, exploding out of his seat and turning over a table, and then like 4 truckers, it's basically Seabass from Dumb and Dumber, get pissed off at him.
I was thinking Dumb and Dumber. I was thinking the same thing. Fuck him up, Seabass. Oh man,
he hawked on my burger.
He did. Throw the salt over your right shoulder.
And so this
is the same scene, but serious.
Yeah, they pick a fight with him, and he just wipes the floor with them.
He does, because he's so badass and handsome and better than
he
you.
fights 4 guys at once. Like, this is so Jack Reacher, this part.
It's Oh man, it's like a fanfic.
And so he gets arrested by local law enforcement, but the sheriff tells him, oh, there's witnesses saying you acted in self-defense, and the assault charges are going to be dropped. And apparently his truck is just strapped full of weapons, which is something he has in common with Rick O'Connell, who like, it's so, because in the first movie, okay, it makes sense, he brings a bag of weapons with him out into the desert where he knows shit is going to go down. And then the second movie, the trunk of his car is just all guns.
Very true. Very true.
He goes, oh yeah, and it's like, oh, you find out he was discharged for psychological reasons. He's like, oh, I keep those weapons for self-defense. It's like, defense from what?
Naturally.
And this is where we go to an island in the Aegean, overlooked by a fortress known as Lorenzo's Castle. And so inside the castle, we're introduced to archaeologist Jenny Halsey, who's the only kind of unaltered character included in the film.
Like in the actual film we saw?
Yeah, because her name stays the same.
Her name stays the same.
There's no previous relationship.
Yeah, there's none of that. But they also cut out like every ounce of backstory.
Yeah, pretty much. Her character is different because she gets tied into Russell Crowe and that whole thing. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, there's no 15 seconds in this.
Yeah, which would have improved it.
Yeah, it would have improved the movie if they just only mentioned it the once, because it keeps coming up.
Yeah, big time. It makes no sense.
Like, they clearly thought that joke was like the ticket.
Yeah, like, oh, this is gonna get us our $1 billion. They put it in all the trailers, even though they didn't.
But she's like all dressed up to the nines, gets ushered into the castle library where she's met by the owner, Lorenzo Montanari, a shady billionaire that like she has worked with before, and he's like trying really hard to fuck her. It's like very obvious.
Oh yeah, because it's a movie written by, fun fact, men.
A man who co-wrote Prometheus.
Yep, which is far better.
Yeah, it's definitely better than The Mummy 27.
Yeah, like most films.
Yeah, he wants her to translate he wants her to translate a Babylonian tablet for him, and she shoos him out of the room when he keeps perving on her ass. And so while he's gone, she takes an artifact from one of the cases and replaces it with a fake. So she's like a archaeologist vigilante.
Ooh, she's so badass.
And Lorenzo eventually returns, and she's finished the translation, which tells the tale of the goddess Ishtar entering the underworld, which is an actual real myth. And Lorenzo tries to get her to stay for dinner or a drink, but she just brushes him off, asks for a fee. And she leaves into the helicopter, changes back into her archaeology clothes mid-flight, and she soon arrives at the dig site she was working on in Jordan under Professor Shepard. She hands him the artifact she lifted, identified as the Eye of Alexander, which I don't think was a real thing, and tells him to get it to the museum quietly. He cautions her against getting involved with dangerous people, but she replies, oh, all the interesting places are dangerous.
Yep.
So, thrill seeker.
Naturally.
And so, back, in America, Tyler, gets out of jail. And he's met by Colonel Gideon Forster, who is also in the movie, but not really because they changed him a lot.
I looked it up. I was actually caring enough to, search up the cast and be like, oh, yeah, of course. Is this even the same guy? Different character, different premise, different everything.
Yeah, I should mention, Jake Johnson did not last 10 minutes into this movie.
Nope. Nope. Not even.
I'm cursed. Yeah, and he's trying to find him, and Tyler tries to just blow him off, but he wants to know about the mission. And we find out that he was court-martialed, placed in a psych ward, and then he got scapegoated for the mission. Who the powers that be were like, oh, he snapped and killed his own men. And they covered up what happened at Mission Control, but Forster figured out about that, and he believes Tyler and wants to talk to him. And so they have drinks in the bar, and so Forster says he works for a secret division in the Defense Department called the Special Weapons Group that specializes in artifacts of inexplicable powers.
Yeah, so this is a way more interesting secret organization than Prodigium.
Prodigium, who are 3 rooms in the basement.
Yeah, literally. What an interesting premise for a secret organization, too. It's not like, oh, let's just kidnap the brain of Frankenstein. Let's no, this object can, literally change the world. Let's, secure it and go, take care of it.
Let's try and use it for military purposes.
Yeah, because what else would the government do?
Yeah. And he then pulls out radiation scans of the tomb, saying that the radiation spiked only when people entered. And he drops the big bomb. He wants to take a team into the tomb to retrieve the sarcophagus, and he wants Tyler to lead it. And he says he thinks he can fix what's wrong with Tyler if he can examine the artifact, but Tyler just walks right out of there. Mm-hmm. And so he's driving his truck down a mountain highway when he has black tendrils emerge from the wound in his palm, and they cover like his entire body, and he has a vision of the dead king Ashurbanipal sneaking his way past the eyeless creatures in a place called the Valley of the Blind, heading for a black tower in the distance, presumably. He's heading over to the other 2017 movie, The Dark Tower.
Yep.
And he gets bitten by like a demon insect, and he cries out, and the blind creatures swarm him. And that's where Tyler awakes. He's driving into oncoming traffic, and then he ends up fucking up. He can't make a tight turn, and the trailer goes over a cliff.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, the visions, like, they're on the page, they read as like interesting like visuals, but I do not like their inclusion.
They probably get cut for budget, as we'll see.
I hope so. They ended up not, but
they're better than the visions in the movie.
Yeah, which is just two people walking up and kissing in a desert.
And reused footage from the beginning of the movie.
Yep, those are the two cheapest ways to do it.
In true Mummy fashion. It's a great homage.
Yep. Oh yeah, big time.
And, he climbs out, the rig topples over into the abyss as well. And hours pass in the single cut before Tyler calls Forster, he's going to agree to the job. And Jenny soon gets a call from Forster as well, and despite a speech from Shepard about how she lacks reverence, takes the job. She soon arrives at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, the most metal Air Force base.
Mm-hmm. I should point out that page 20 to 21 is like the fastest character arc of all time. He's like, I don't want to do this, and then he like later on, like the next page, he's like, actually, wait, I want to do this. It's like writing speedrun any % world record writing.
The fastest is Charlie Hunnam at the beginning of Pacific Rim.
Yeah, where he's like, no, yes. But then, and then in this scene that you're starting to describe here, she just meets Professor Exposition, who says nothing but plot-relevant things.
Basil Exposition.
Oh my god, can't stand him.
Okay, where the fuck was I? At the metal base, where she argues with Forster. He's like, I don't plunder tombs. He's like, I know your work. He basically blackmails her into helping out the expedition, saying that, I'll turn you over to Interpol if you don't. But then she she sweetens the pot by going, but you have to give me twice my usual fee. Ooh. I do find her character kind of amusing.
Yeah, starts out that way.
And so Forster introduces Jenny to Tyler, who's planning out the mission in the nearby hangar. And he sees her as like, oh, a civilian? What are my other assets?
Yep, more like useless.
Oh, I should say, the actress who plays her in the movie, she was in 2 huge bombs within a month of each other, because she was also in Guy Ritchie's King Arthur.
Oh my god, she was?
Yeah.
Man, her agent was like, we got the next A-lister coming.
And her character just disappears from that movie, too.
Oh, wow. That's...
Because that was a movie that got edited. She also is the star of Joaquin's favorite movie, Malignant.
Favorite movie of all time.
That movie's fun. I like that movie. But
I've always wanted to watch it. I hear good things, except from Joaquin, who did not like it. So I have not watched it.
Yeah. Dude, I think he was more positive on The Cat in the Fucking Hat.
For some reason. Those chuckle fucks.
Yeah, but and Forster says they're going to be bringing 12 specialists from the Army Corps of Engineers. And he wants Rangers or SEALs to run security because that area is controlled by tribal warlords.
Like most areas, yep.
And Jetty points out the Mesopotamian cultures didn't build that far out in the desert. And, when he says, oh, we need anti-sound measures to deal with the voices, she goes, so is it just you who hears them?
I really like there's a lot this script does that's actually kind of cool. I like the premise of the creepy environment with this oddly specific supernatural quality.
Yeah,
it reminds me of the Twilight Zone or something. But yeah, because they're building up to this scene where they're gonna be all right, let's do a montage of doing all these specific things that'll counteract the supernatural room. Kind of funny.
Yeah, it's really cool because it all makes sense too, the things he's trying to do here.
Yeah, I wish they kept, frankly, any of this. Why isn't this, this would actually be kind of cool.
Yeah, and I will say, stupid name aside, Tyler Colt is a better character than Nick Morton because he has a personality at all.
Oh my god, Nick Morton. His last name means death, and he becomes the devil at the end.
It either means death or saltine crackers.
Oh, I really hope it was the second one intentionally.
It's so weird because Tom Cruise is usually really charismatic and cool in his movies, and he's just not in The Mummy.
Yeah,
it's such an aberration because he normally makes good movies too.
Mm-hmm. I know, yeah. Tom Cruise and his team, usually they do some really cool stuff. And I know it's not the script we're reading right now, but the airplane scene that we did see is such a cool real life stunt. And they cut it so poorly that you can't even tell that it was like this cool real life stunt. It feels like it was faked. So really sad.
And so Tyler insists on no weapons, leaves to meet with the engineers, and Jenny asks what the deal is, and Forrest replies, oh, he's the best of the best. He's gone undercover with arms dealers, which I only mention because that's important later. And then everything changed when he enters the tomb. He just throws down the big fat file in front of her that she reads.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Big time.
And so Tyler, he insists they bring a helicopter along because I'm not getting into playing with that fucking thing. And Jenny then approaches with the file, complimenting his accurate drawing of the tomb, but says that the Guardian statue should be facing outward, not inward, which they don't pick up that thread in this one, but they do in the next one.
Yep.
Which I thought was...
Yeah, so you're right. They don't do anything with that in this one. They do in the second one. And then the third one is where they make that same observation, and then she couples that with, it's not a tomb, it's a prison. So they're like facing the tomb on purpose.
Yes.
So yeah, that's like one of the only things that improved as the drafts went on. Everything else downgraded.
I think a couple things are improved. I'll talk about it when we get there.
Sure.
And so Tyler tries to get her to walk away, but Jenny's like, oh yeah, I'm blackmailed too. And besides, the tomb was a very important find, so she wants to be there. And so they board the plane, they leave, and they're soon at the tomb with digging machines removing the rubble because like the passage collapsed when he got out. And he gathers the 12 engineers, love Jenny and Forster, explaining they need to watch their suit seals and air supplies as well of each other, and if they start hearing voices, follow the guideline, back out of the tomb, go straight to the medic.
Yep.
And they gear up in white hazmat suits and anti-sound headsets, all unarmed except for Tyler, who is packing incendiary rounds.
Yep, of course, naturally.
File into the tomb, reaching the antechamber, they begin setting up floodlights. And they enter the labyrinth. 2 of the lights go out. One of the engineers has to leave. He goes out of the tomb. Then Tyler leads into the sarcophagus chamber where Jenny starts examining the artifact and takes her headset off, saying it belongs to Ashurbanipal, the last great Assyrian king. And so Tyler takes his off, telling her to suit back up. Forster takes his off because he signals the engineers for extraction. And they start hearing the whispering chant, and Forster starts to get overwhelmed by it, saying, I've never felt power like this before, like he's Charles Xavier in Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah. That was the big moment in that trailer.
Which
is better than the movie.
That moment, which means absolutely nothing in the movie.
Yeah, it's just like a throwaway moment.
And so Tyler forces them to suit back up at gunpoint. And I'm like, characters stupidly take their helmets off. This guy co-wrote Prometheus?
Yep.
Although,
big time.
In all fairness, his draft of Prometheus doesn't have that scene in it.
Yeah. Prometheus doesn't have a scene where a character says, hey, it would be a good idea if we put them back on.
No, that was Damon Lindelof who wrote that part.
Yeah, big time.
The engineers, I actually thought this was pretty cool. They placed a sarcophagus in a Kevlar shell that they fill with argon gas. So they're being smart. They're trying to contain it.
Attempting.
Whereas in the movie, it's, let's just drop it on the fucking deck and take off.
Yep.
And they really thought that image was going to sell the movie because that was the poster.
Oh, it certainly was. It was a big deal. The sarcophagus strapped on a plane.
It was the same poster, in fact, as Winter Soldier, just instead of Captain America, it's a mummy.
Yep. That really ropes the people in the box office.
And so Tyler lights a flare. So the floodlights burn out one by one. Tyler lights a flare, leads them out, and checks in with the medic. The engineer just had a panic attack. So they're good. And the convoy heads for the plane. And on the way back, Jenny notices and photographs the boundary stone from earlier, and we now see that's one of a ring of stones circling the tomb. And they soon reach the salt flat that the plane is parked on. Before long, they come under attack from those tribal warriors mentioned earlier who are armed with RPGs. They destroy a few of the ground vehicles as well as the helicopter. And Tyler puts Jenny in charge of loading the sarcophagus while he and Forster use one of the Humvees to provide cover. It's a cool little action scene. Jenny leaves the plane's ramp down as it begins to take off, and Tyler and Forster, they drive the Humvee up into the plane just before it leaves the ground. I'm just imagining, like, the Bond producers coming in and putting a slide whistle over that. And so one of the trucks with the warriors in it driving stops, and the warlord himself gets out, making a call on a satellite phone. And he speaks to a mysterious man in an opulent penthouse wearing a tailored suit and a ring shaped like a 4-barred cross whose face remains unseen. And the warlord says he failed to stop them. They have taken the king of the dead. And the man simply says, the time has come. So basically in this script, we have a group who's like the Magi in the Brendan Fraser movies, only they're way better funded, a lot wealthier.
Yeah, they're a shadow organization that's more interesting than Prometheus. You brought it up, that's why I thought that. Than Prodigium. And yeah, you're right. They have more going on than the other mummy movie shadow organizations.
Yeah, and God, what was I going to say?
They're a bigger part of the story than the other ones, and the detriment is we'll get to this character whose name starts with an M, who I just despise, and we'll get to why later.
Is it because of the movie?
No. The movie was funny though. That guy, it just cut to his face like 100 times and he did nothing.
And he was nobody when that came out.
Absolutely. We'll get to audience if you're not sure. We'll get there. Don't worry.
He wasn't Jafar yet.
No, he was not. Or Black Adam's villain. I don't remember the name.
Who turns into a fucking like PS3
Demon?
cutscene.
Oh man, people make fun of the flashes effects, but damn, you seen Black Adam?
Someone was showing me screenshots from it, and they showed me the CGI skinny Dwayne. I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh man, yeah, that's hilarious. As if everyone didn't know that looks like The Rock.
And so back on the plane, the sarcophagus, still in its shell, is being tied down, and Tyler signals the engineers to keep their headsets on. He heads to the cockpit, where he, Jenny, and Forster, they sit in the jump seats, and Jenny's like writing everything down she saw in the tomb because first 60 minutes are golden for recall.
Mm-hmm.
And Forster's like, well, you didn't expect to lose anyone, but everything will be fine once they get back with the sarcophagus. Like, yeah, you're just going to be able to brush under the fact a bunch of your dudes got blown up.
Yep.
Tyler is soon asleep again as the plane crosses the Mediterranean, and he dreams of the dead king, his skin inked with warding glyphs descending the endless stair, which is choked with tree roots. And there's a light ahead of him, and he ducks into a crevice to avoid a hawk-headed demon, but is grabbed by the roots but is pulled into the earth, and so Tyler awakes, finding the plane is flown to a sudden storm, and an unusually dark cloud is approaching. But it's no cloud, it's a Krebine from Dunland.
No, it's actually a fun swarm of crows, which is one of the only things that is consistent in this draft, the next draft, and the film we saw.
Yep, yeah, she controls ravens. He controls ravens.
Yep, that's about it. Everything else is basically way different.
This is like the big scene they kept was this action scene. They kept the Iraq thing kind of, I guess, because they had already budgeted a desert fight.
Sure, yeah.
And
they really hinged the trailers on that the crow storm as well.
Yeah, the whole plane sequence.
Mm-hmm.
It crashes into the plane at high speed, setting all 4 engines on fire and killing the pilots. And the plane goes into a nosedive, and the 3 of them head back into the cargo hold where the engineers are all dead, their headsets off and the shell broken open. That happened in about 5 seconds flat.
Yep.
They climb up to the rear, open the ramp, struggle into parachutes. Forrester jumps. Jenny is about to go when the dead rise, and one pulls her chute while still in the plane. Tyler cuts her chute and throws her out of the plane.
Yep.
That's pretty funny.
That's pretty great.
He's like, trust me. And so he shoots an undead engineer with an incendiary round before jumping out. He catches up to Jenny because he puts the regular chute on her, pulls her chute, and they land on a building in Rome as the plane crashes. And she comes to, she's like hitting him like, you threw me out of a plane. So yes, the main character survives the plane crash in this version, which it's better because him dying but then coming back doesn't mean anything in the movie.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I wanted to say that the movie was better because it's more interesting that he died and then came back, but then you're right, it doesn't really mean anything. And a microcosm of the problems with the movie is the scene where he wakes up in the body bag starts off pretty cool. It's a pretty good scene, and then it turns into a joke where they walk in and he's naked. Yep, yeah, side-splittingly funny. That movie has a serious tone problem.
Yeah, it does. Don't complain. The Invisible Man's naked all the time.
Yeah, he boxed naked.
She starts to process what she saw. He goes we just dropped something bad in the center of Rome. So in this draft, it's not London because, they probably changed it because, we can get tax credits. It's Rome.
Sure.
It's Rome.
Oh, yeah.
And so at the crash site, there's an old man trapped in rubble, sees a black hand emerge from beneath the debris, and it climbs out, revealing the blackened, withered mummy, which has pipes mounted in its wrist and throat. It stabs the old man with the pipes and drains his life, before hearing the cries of a woman walking off to find a new victim. So this mummy spends a good chunk of the script piping.
Oh yeah, big pipe energy. Not for nothing, but that's Dracula's thing, is it not?
Like absorbing life force?
Yeah, creeping up someone and getting stronger and more powerful by draining other people's life.
Well, he did that. He did that in the 1999 movie.
Did, yeah. I don't know. I feel like Universal's version of the Mummy all that different from their Dracula.
Well, that's a criticism of the original Mummy.
Yeah, because he's just hypnotizing people over and over again.
And he has there's a special symbol that like wards him off, and he's fixating on a particular woman, and it had the same screenwriter as Dracula.
Yep, that's a good point too.
And so the three main characters, they have arrived at the crash site. Forster cajoles the U.S. ambassador into helping him with a cover story, and Tyler fumes at the destruction he feels he caused. Forster gives Jenny and Tyler ID badges, saying they'll be part of the investigation, and so he turns an abandoned storefront into a command center, tells them Special Weapons has no assets in the region, so they're on their own. I'm like, yeah, you're not a very good, far-reaching shadow organization.
No, you had to lie to your bosses to do this.
Yes, and you're still better than Prodigium.
Yep, easily.
We put Larry Talbot in charge of the Special Weapons Division.
May as well.
And so Tyler's like, ooh, all this destruction we caused, blah, blah, blah. And so he also asks Jenny to do whatever an Assyrian priest would do to protect people from a curse. And so she has them take off their shirts. We get a cutaway to Shepard watching a news report to remind you that character exists. Go back to the storefront. Jenny is painted a protective seal over Forster's heart and finishing off the one on Tyler using an image on a tablet for reference. And so she's ready to set out, but they all need protection. So Tyler's like, take off your shirt. Don't worry. I used to do the face because I always had good hands.
Yep. Yeah. No, there's a lot of like, ooh, take off your shirt. Ooh, you're a hunk. Take off your shirt. Ooh, boobs. Like, I'll say this. The romance isn't overbearing.
No, it's not.
Not really. It's not developed at all. Like, he's just constantly in situations where he's heroic and saves her over and over again.
It's better than man and woman on screen together.
Yeah. It's almost that. It's so close to being that. But because by the end, well, I guess I don't spoil it, but like, it's not like it changes much.
Yeah, it doesn't. And where are we? And so they fan out over the crash site, and Tyler using deduction and measurements. He's basically doing the Sherlock Holmes thing where he's like imagining stuff that's happening.
Yep, which is kind of cool. But,
it plays more like that scene in Fast and Furious 4 where Vin Diesel is like sniffing the fucking oil stains on the ground.
Oh my god. Remember that scene in Fast X where the car was on its side and he like fixed the engine in the middle of the fight so he could drive the car sideways into two people?
I haven't even seen Fast 9 yet, so...
Oh, man. Audience, you know what I'm talking about. Man, it's so good. Anyway, next.
And so, it traces the sarcophagus to an abbey that was ruined by the crash. Ravens are hanging out. And he finds a piece of the iron sarcophagus next to the blown open entrance to the wine cellar. Is soon joined by Jenny and Forster. There's like, we can climb down, be careful. She just jumps down. To find more pieces.
The scene where the Ravens are just chilling and watching them would have been cool if there was like shards of the airplane windshield just like in their bodies.
Yeah. And so there's pieces of the sarcophagus that she lays out, and there are no more whispering sounds, and Forster speculates that destroying the artifact broke the curse. Tyler isn't so sure. And Jenny points out Ashurbanipal's remains should be easy to find as he would have been buried in gold and jewels. But then Tyler says, just cites his dream, saying that he was shaved and then sealed in hot tar. They hear a scream, and so Forster stays with Jenny. Tyler leaps. He does like a Ninja Gaiden leap to get out of the cellar.
He does. He's like, he rockets up out of the cellar, leaping from wall to wall with athleticism and disappear. Like, what is this? Like, we did not see any scene prior where he's doing like gymnastics. Like, where does this come from?
And just around the corner, the police have found the bodies of the victims, and Forster appears. He tries to downplay the supernatural angle. Tyler won't hear it and is especially mad that he left Jenny alone, hurries back to the cellar. So she's...
This trio of characters here are like infinitely more likable than Courtney B. Vance and whoever else. No shade to the actor, by the way. He's great. But I keep contrasting this with like, this is the general, this is that Jenny, and this is Tom Cruise. This is what they would have been. And this is so much... It's not even great, but it's like a better... interaction between them than what we got.
Yes, and I will say, this does not feel like a Tom Cruise character to me.
No, not at all. Obviously, it's pre-Cruise anyway.
Not least because of the fact that he said to be 32.
Oh my!
But
yeah, no,
he feels more.
Cruise wasn't involved.
He feels more
2013. I don't think
he feels almost more like Chris Pratt.
Yeah. Every script is trying to be that.
Like
now,
that
fun Guardians vibe.
Like that fucking like Army Bro series he did on Amazon, like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but so Jenny, she's examining the sarcophagus pieces, not noticing that the mummy is watching from a drain behind her. And he hears her muttering out loud in Akkadian, though, and is gone when Tyler returns. And so, yes, Akkadian, that means Scorpion King is canon.
Ooh, baby, let's go.
And so she tells him this is strange, as the Assyrians didn't mummify their dead, which is, it's great that they point that out, and I'll have to complain about that in the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And he stops her when you hear, and the sarcophagus was filled with pipes that would have plunged into the corpse. And the inscriptions mention blood of dreams, blood of night, blood of returning, and blood of the chosen, the last of which is associated with the spike that pricked Tyler's hand. And she says this is some kind of sorcery designed to raise the dead. And so we go to the mummy. It climbs a vertical drain and bursts through a grating into an alley before emerging from the alley and looking upon Rome. Forster has returned to his base, where he's confronted by the ambassador along with 4 Marines. And it turns out, there was no mission to Iraq. Forster bullshitted, and so they try to arrest him, but then he uses some kind of pattern on his tablet to hypnotize the men and freeze them in place as he makes his escape. So it's a merging of magic and technology, which is kind of cool, but kind of silly the way it's described.
It is silly, but I wish they kept more of this. Sorry, any of this at all in the movie we saw, because there's none of that. This is a huge secret organization with all this weaponry and gear and interesting artifacts, and Tom Cruise just kind of walks through it and leaves. At least this one implements at least a couple things.
Yeah, and Prodigium just seems super ill prepared.
Yeah, even though they're the ones that are leading the expedition, but also exposition, unrelated, to get the tomb where the opening scene is Russell Crowe busting into that weird knight's tomb or whatever, which makes more sense in the other draft of the script where they talk about the knight. And oh man, this is our big deal. We're gonna capture her, and then she breaks out. You spent all that time, probably all that money.
Yeah, they spent a ton of money on that movie, and it doesn't actually look expensive.
No, it's not. Oh well.
But okay, so back in the cellar, Jenny thinks there's a lot of back and forth in this part of the script that I think one of the improvements in the second draft is that they trim a lot of it down.
Mm-hmm.
So she thinks the king's remains have fallen apart due to moisture, but Tyler says, I think it's not here because he went for a little walk, which is a nice little reference to the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what the guy says after he goes crazy when he sees the mummy get up and walk.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he says he went for a little walk, and he laughed.
I didn't remember that at all.
Yeah. So yeah, Spates watched the movie. So they emerge from the cellar. They're confronted by 2 Marines to arrest them. Tyler's like, oh yeah, Forster's full of shit. Before they can take it up, Tyler just beats their asses and handcuffs them, shooting them with tranquilizer darts. And Forster's like, yeah, I couldn't get the go-ahead for the emission, so I forged orders ahead on his own. And Tyler just choke slams them into the wall. He's like, hey, I'll help you clear your names. I'll take responsibility. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, man.
It's pretty funny.
Yep.
And that's when a pair of Italian cops run by them, talking over their radios, which Jenny translates as, the devil killed again. They follow after the police, coming upon 2 more murder sites not far apart. And it's like, why would the mummy kill these people? But Tyler's like, he's not actually after them. They're just in his way, and he's heading somewhere. So they run down the street, find themselves in St. Peter's Square outside the Vatican, just as a priest comes running out screaming about the devil. We then see the mummy burst through the doors of the Vatican library, leaving decay in his wake. And so Tyler's scar starts to burn, and he holds it up, determining the direction they need to head straight into the Vatican, which I like how he uses that to as a radar.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. He purposely did the crow thing to down the plane over there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and how Tyler uses the burning in his hand to find the mummy.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. There's some cool concepts in this script. I'm not even astounded by it, but that's kind of interesting how they started from some form of substance before they just went off the rails.
Yeah. And so they head straight into the Vatican. As they move on, Jenny mentions the Assyrians were incredibly brutal. Ashurbanipal was the worst of them all. Worse than Genghis Khan or Attila the Hun, which is kind of throwing Genghis Khan under the bus.
Honestly, yeah.
And Attila the Hun.
Mm-hmm.
And she won't leave them, though. She won't leave, though, as Tyler suggests. She doesn't want to miss the millennia-old Walking Dead guy, and Forster agrees to this. And they find a dead guard outside the burst-open library doors. And Tyler's like, oh, he came straight here. It was no accident we crashed in Rome. And we then go to a reading room where the mummy has impaled and killed 2 acolytes with he's piped them. And he is confronted by a trained exorcist. And we get this battle of the wills where the exorcist is using exorcism spells and the mummy is fighting back. So this is where Russell Crowe comes in. It's the Pope's exorcist.
Easily, yeah. In a dual role. as both Jekyll and the X.
And eventually the mummy wins and makes the exorcist vomit up sand until he dies, which pretty cool.
That's pretty fun. I'm not going to lie.
Is it as fun as him turning into a pile of sand and going through a lock?
No, that is ridiculously fun. This is mildly fun. There's a big difference.
And 3 heroes walk through the library because I just got tired of writing all their names. Jenny gets up to speed on how the Assyrians would fight the dead with fire, purification, salt, and avoid looking them in the eye, which is easy, I guess.
It's easy because the eyes don't split into 2 eyes like the next draft.
Oh, yeah, we're in the movie.
Yep.
And they soon enter the reading room, find the 3 bodies on the floor. The whispering is heard again, and the 3 bodies reanimate, forcing Tyler to shoot them down with his incendiary rounds. They follow the trail of decay to the entrance to the secret archives, which has been wrenched open. They reach the central chamber, which branches out into reliquaries, and they find the dying chief archivist, and Jenny stays with him as Tyler and Forster head off to investigate the sounds coming from a nearby reliquary, Tyler with his rounds, Forster with these poison darts, which are like a super cocktail of every toxin known to man.
Yeah, those are in both drafts, and like they don't do much.
No, they don't. They fail hilariously.
Yep.
Tyler and Forster find the mummy now dressed in a black priest's cassock, pillaging a reliquary, and when it turns to face them, Tyler gets quick visions of Ashurbanipal on a battlefield and in the underworld. The mummy stalks towards him, but Tyler shoots him with the incendiary rounds, which unfortunately don't work on him, and neither do Forster's poison darts. And Tyler's like, do we have any salt? And in the central chamber, the archivist tells Jenny that the mummy must not find the king's legacy or he'll open the gates of hell, which is pretty interesting because I think he speaks in Latin, and she also knows Latin, which shows she's educated.
Yep.
And Forster tries to charge the mummy with this weird electric dagger, but the mummy just pulls it out and stabs Forster with it and kills him.
Weird that he thought that would work.
I mean, you gotta try.
I guess it's better than not having a weird electric dagger against an ancient mummy.
I mean, my tech beats your magic sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather have a 5-year-old fighting with me against an army of 3 dudes versus not having another person, but I do not bet on myself in that case.
And so Tyler runs back to the central chamber just as the dying archivist hands Jenny a set of keys before kicking the bucket. And Tyler says they can't leave as the police are surrounding the Vatican, but Jenny says they're not going out but down. Take him down some stairs, explain what the archivist said about the king's legacy, and that he told her where to find it. They come to a locked gate at the bottom of the stairs just as the mummy appears above them. She gets the gate open and they go through, but she has to lock it by reaching through the gate and using that keyhole. Why you can't lock it from the other side, I don't know.
This chase scene goes on forever, man. Like, this is just a long... Oopsies, he's right there. Let's keep going. Oopsies. Like, it's just
I
over
will
and
say
over.
this. I prefer it to the movie where the pacing dies on its ass after the plane crash.
Yeah, instead of weird chases that take this long, they have, like, lots of, like, Marvel quips.
And bar scenes.
Bar scenes that are full of just him going, like, up.
And a weird dream sequence where there's rats and the mummy is, like, walking around like a monkey.
Mm-hmm.
That means absolutely nothing in the movie. That's just a random scene.
And then that dream scene, I remember that because it has the remember that how the Mummy trailer leaked and it had like no audio, but it had like him screaming.
Yeah.
They put him screaming's audio in that dream sequence. I was like, holy shit, no way they just used that. But that was really funny.
And so Jenny locks the gate just as the mummy reaches it, and she speaks to him in Akkadian, asking him if he is Ashurbanipal. And he replies in the affirmative, demands his crown, lunging at them through the gate, beginning to corrode it as they flee. So he has corrosion powers like the bad guy in Ghost Rider 2.
The bad guy in Ghost Rider 2. I was thinking the same thing.
And this is after Ghost Rider 2. So.
Remember when he picked up the Twinkie and it couldn't age because it's a Twinkie? That's very funny.
That is funny. It's almost as funny as the scraping at the door scene.
Yep.
And they head through the vaults until they find the right one, inside of which is a box. It has the 4-barred cross on it, which Jenny refers to as a Jed pillar, which is an actual Egyptian symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Attached to a stone plinth. So Jenny opens the box. Inside is a golden crown set with red stones, an Assyrian cylinder seal, and an empty space where a sword is meant to go. Okay, something I have to mention, we never find out in the script how the Vatican got this stuff.
No, they never go over that.
So yeah, that's one of the problems I have with it. And I'll talk about the sword a little bit later.
Yep.
And so they grab the items, and the mummy, who has already broken through the gate, can feel the surge of power caused by someone taking the crown, and begins to, like, hobble even faster, like, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
So he can definitely beat Lon Chaney Jr.'s mummy in a running contest.
Freaking I could.
Yeah, I could too, and I'm fat and out of shape. And so Tyler and Jenny, they flee down the corridor to an old iron door, which she manages to open just in time. And they're in winding limestone catacombs, and Tyler's like, oh shit, there's a bunch of dead bodies here.
I know.
Which,
real tragic.
Sure enough, begin to reanimate, and even when they spot a staircase leading out, Jenny gets grabbed by hands that burst out of coffins in the wall, and so Tyler shoots the hands. It's like a game of Bop Them All. And they flee up the stairs and escape, which lead them to a mausoleum, where they manage to push open the heavy door, exiting into a cemetery. And they get the door shut, and Tyler, bracing himself against another mausoleum, knocks over a marble angel statue and blocks the door, just as the mummy arrives, cursing in Akkadian as he pounds against the door. So I can only assume he's just going like, fucking shit, fuck shit.
Naturally. Whatever they can get away with PG-13.
This doesn't read like it's a PG-13. Like, this reads like it's coming up to the edge of R.
I don't know, man. I mean, like, yeah, some of the action, but, like, all the dialogue is, like, boopy doopy whoop-de-doo.
And so Tyler and Jenny, they walk onto a bridge over the Tiber, and they jump from the bridge to a party boat on the river below, just as they hear the mausoleum door crash open. There's your stunt, Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
And the tail end of the boat is full of couples making out, and so they're on they basically dived into a wedding reception. And so Tyler grabs a wine bottle, takes a swig, and then Jenny takes the wine, pours it over the cylinder seal, and like runs it over the tablecloth to see what's on it. And this is a real thing they had in like the Mesopotamian cultures, the cylinder seals, where they would like roll it on wet clay, and that would make an image with writing.
Interesting. Okay.
And so the inscription begins, "We are the rebel temple. We stand watch lest the dead king rise." And it then explains that Ashurbanipal captured Egyptian priests, learned their magic, wanting to descend to the underworld, steal the god's power, and rise again as the god king of the entire earth.
Yep, that's how it goes.
As you do.
As you do.
And it also says the tomb's walls must not be broken. They have. And the sarcophagus must not drink blood. It has. He will seek out the crown and sword which he has invested his powers into, like he would a stock. And the crown will give him greater power over the living dead, earth and sky, while the sword will allow him to shatter armies and strongholds.
Yay, great power. Woo.
And once he has them, he'll go to his necropolis and open the underworld gate, loosing its hordes upon the world. And,
upon the world, you say?
Yes. And I think the underworld gate, I think that was in the script up until very, very late. Because you have that weird scene right at the beginning where Russell Crowe looks at the wall carving, and that's never explained why that's significant.
No, not at all.
So it's like, I think there was a late version of the script where he's looking at the gate.
Yeah, you know, that movie is very overproduced.
That's usually a term I hear used for music, but it fits. It fits.
Funny. It sure does fit with that specific film.
But the images, and there's more that she needs to make a better print to read, but the images match the crown they have, and she recognizes the depiction of the sword, which was in Lorenzo's collection.
Naturally.
They don't explain how he got it from the Vatican, but I can buy into that because he says like all these like criminal connections, someone probably robbed them or something.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, this rich collector dude wants a sword, let's steal a sword.
Right, yeah.
And we cut to Lorenzo in bed with two women. It's like Michael Clark Duncan in The Scorpion King.
Yeah, he's getting it.
So he gets a call from Jenny, and she tells him she has a piece he'd be interested in, and that she wants to come show it to him. He relents, saying he'll send a helicopter to the usual pickup place in Rome. And Tyler starts to notice, basically Italian SWAT showing up along the riverbank. And his scar starts to burn. And the bridge ahead of them is blanketed with ravens, and the mummy steps out, waiting for the boat to come to him. I kind of like that the mummy's like, oh, I'm going to get ahead of you.
Big time.
Yeah, you're on a slow-ass boat.
Jerry rig everything, because I have every type of magic power all at once.
Yeah, and then so Tyler goes up to the top deck, grabs the wheel, and just slams the boat into shore.
Like you do.
Like, you just fucked up that wedding party, dude. You're an asshole.
Hey, one wedding party for the world? That's a fair deal.
Yeah, true. And so they leap onto the bank, and they run down a maze of side streets, hearing the whispers again, and avoiding, the Carabinieri, which is Italian SWAT. And a dark man, in caps, then steps out of the shadows, holds a knife to Jenny's throat, and points a gun at Tyler, demanding the crown. And he says he killed them both to keep the dead king from getting it. And then Jenny appears to give in, but instead she hooks it around the dagger. She hooks the crown around his dagger, and Tyler rushes the dark man, kicking the gun out of his hand. And so they fight. Yep. Tyler breaks his nose and knocks him out, taking the dagger. Jenny grabs the gun, and they both make a run for it.
Yep.
The Rebel Temple also reminds me of the guys from Last Crusade who like try to kill Indiana Jones in Venice.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, never thought about that.
And so they reach a marina at the mouth of the Tiber, which is a fucking long way away from Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently they walked it, waiting at its heliport for their ride, and they look at the dagger. Jenny comments it's made from Damascus steel and must be 1,000 years old. It also has the four-barred cross on it, as does the cylinder seal. The helicopter lands, and the mummy emerges unseen from a nearby drainage tunnel. Tyler and Jenny, they argue with the pilot, who was only told to expect one passenger, but they get on the helicopter, and the mummy grabs onto the strut as it takes off. It reaches into the helicopter and tries to grab Jenny's bag, but Tyler stabs it with the dagger, falls out of the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
So the daggers do work on it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And so the mummy then falls to the bottom of the ocean, but walks over to an anchor chain and climbs up into an old cargo ship. We will see what he does with that later.
Mm-hmm. We certainly will.
And so during the helicopter flight, Jenny warns Tyler about how dangerous Lorenzo is. And he just says, hey, you work the black market, huh? And this annoys her.
Yep. That scene is also in the next script, but with different dialogue, but it's the same energy.
Yeah, it's the same thing. And they soon arrive at the island where Lorenzo's like, oh, you brought a man with you, haha. And she tries to pass him off as an archaeologist, which is pretty funny.
Oh, how'd you bring a man in the presence of me who wants to be with you, even though I make weird sexual comments and you rebuke every single one?
Yes, and he's like, oh, dude, you have to get dressed for breakfast because breakfast is important in my house.
Like, what? Yeah, like, come on. This fucking character. And he takes up so much of the script, too.
And I don't mind it in theory, but he's ridiculous.
He is. He really is.
And so they're led away into the castle. Jenny's like, hey, let's make a bid for a sword. If he doesn't buy it, we'll tell him the truth. And so they have breakfast with Lorenzo in the dining room, dressed to the nines, in a sundress and a fashionable shirt and jacket.
What an incredible scene.
And so Vittorio, the head of security, alerts Lorenzo quietly to the fact that Tyler is carrying a gun. He tests Tyler's cover as an archaeologist and just so happens to ask him a question that he would know because of the psychic connection with the dead king.
Exactly.
And they head to the library to look at Lorenzo's collection. Jenny points out the sword, which is made of steel and folded in a way it should be too old for. And steel did not exist in Assyrian times, so it's just like
It did not, yeah.
It's just like, they're putting a Band-Aid over that.
Yep.
And like the way they talk about how many times it's been folded, I'm like, you've been watching Highlander, haven't you?
Been watching Forged in Fire.
And so they spread out, and so they put clay on the table and they roll out the cylinder seal to get a clear reading. And so the unclear part says, to seek the rebel temple in Byzantium, the dead king rises. And Lorenzo's like, I hate those guys because they're based in Istanbul and they buy up mystical relics and they always manage to outbid him, and that pisses him off.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyler then notices that they've been surrounded by Lorenzo's men, and he reveals that he knows Jenny stole the eye and replaced it with a fake. Like, he takes down, smashes it.
Ooh, very intimidating.
And so Tyler tries to fight back, but he gets knocked out. And he comes to in a chair, handcuffed to a chair in the library. This iron waistcoat is with a wheel on the front is on his torso. And this is where it just turns into the world is not enough for a few pages.
It does.
And Jenny is...
Yeah, I about that scene too, where it's like that chest thing that you tighten.
Yeah. Old Pond looked like he was enjoying that.
Yeah, well, that's Pierce Brosnan for you.
And so Jenny's tied to a chair. Lorenzo smashes the fake eye and wants to get back what he stole. Is like either in money or in something else. Either in money or pipe.
Yep. I wonder what the something else could be.
Yeah.
The creepy character.
And she claims it's safely in the Jordan Museum, but Lorenzo doubts that as he has contacts in Rome who've told him what happened, and he wants the rest of the tomb loot he thinks they have. And he keeps turning the wheel tighter and mentions that the breastplate is known as a traitor's waistcoat, which I could not find any evidence of this existing.
Nope.
It was used by Torquemada himself.
It feels like it should exist. I'll say that.
Yeah, it feels realistic to me, at least. But then Tyler starts laughing, saying he's here, and we go to see out the window what he saw, a huge storm approaching the island, along with the cargo ship accompanied by ravens. On the deck of the ship, which is strewn with the drained corpses of sailors, the possessed helmsman is still manning the wheel, muttering in Akkadian, and we see the mummy, still black and wrinkled, but more fleshed out, due to having absorbed so many lives. And in the library, Jenny pleads with Lorenzo, saying that the story on the cylinder is true. Lorenzo doesn't believe her, storming out and leaving Marco, the pilot of all people, to stand guard. And so Lorenzo and his guards, they march through the Grand Hall. Lorenzo places the crown on a bust of Socrates, orders the bell be rung, which alerts the villagers to approaching danger, and they take to the streets to defend the island.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to work out really well for them. I was reading that, like, come on. It's the fucking mummy. Like, come on.
Well, they don't know.
Oh, the Lorenzo didn't?
No, Lorenzo doesn't believe.
Oh, I get it. Never mind.
And the villagers don't know shit. They just heard a ringing bell.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Lorenzo and his men, they take position on the castle's battlements and watch. And so on board the cargo ship, the mummy cuts his hand with one of his pipes and holds his hand out over the water, squeezing the blood. And this almost turns into Dracula Untold here.
It's not even Untold. It's just a Dracula thing. Like, bloodletting? Like, that's his whole shebang.
But he makes it rain blood over the island, and the villagers are like, nope, fuck this, and go back inside.
Yep, yeah, no, I'm villagers. It's me.
No, this scene would have been really fucking cool, I think.
Sure would.
And so Lorenzo and his men, they go back inside the castle. The ship crashes into shore, and the mummy leaps onto the docks. And so in the library, Jenny takes advantage of the distracted Marco and attacks him, gripping at his gun. Tyler even manages to stand up in the chair and throw himself at Marco, helping in the brawl. And as the mummy walks through the rain of blood unopposed, Jenny gets a hold of Marco's gun, takes the waistcoat off Tyler, and he's still cuffed though, and she's like, I can try shooting this, and they're both like, no, don't do that. Because that wouldn't actually work. And so Marco hands over the keys. Lorenzo, Vittorio, and the guards line up at the front door to wait for the mummy and check the security monitors, seeing only static where he's now standing, which is another interesting idea.
Yep.
The mummy outside grabs up a spider and eats it, which makes the guards start vomiting up spiders, snakes, and scorpions, which swarm and kill them. Cool. Yeah, awesome scene.
This is what you mean by the R rating kind of thing.
And he blasts through the doors, enslaves Lorenzo with his powers, who then hands over the crown. And the mummy puts it on his head, which partially restores him as now no longer the mummy, but Ashurbanipal.
Yep.
And so in the library, Tyler breaks the glass on the display and takes the sword. They soon hear whispering voices and head for the helicopter. It's not a smooth takeoff, though, as Tyler has never actually flown before, just sat in the second seat on the way back from missions. It's like, oh yeah, this one's complicated.
No, yeah, that's a good point.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. There's some genuinely funny moments in the scripts, and then there's some genuinely, or rather, ironically funny moments, too. They're laden throughout. They keep switching back and forth.
Yeah. And so they fly away just as Ashurbanipal emerges onto the terrace, and Lorenzo's like, hey, they have the sword, and as they head off, Jenny says that man in the alley must have been a member of the Rebel Temple and that they must have thought that they woke up Ashurbanipal on purpose. She says they should head to Byzantium and seek their help as they're their only option, and so Ashurbanipal starts punching the marble banister, causing lightning to strike with every blow, getting closer and closer to the helicopter each time.
I like fighting with weather. It's very fun.
Yeah, and the lightning hits the helicopter. It crashes in the sea near the Greek coast. And so Ashurbanipal notices a cuneiform impression on Lorenzo's face from Tyler whacking him in the face with a cylinder seal, which conveniently happens to be the excerpt saying, seek the Rebel Temple in Byzantium.
Yep. Oh yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it?
Which I don't think Byzantium existed yet in Assyrian times, but at this point I'm splitting hairs.
There isn't a soul alive in theaters wondering that if they're watching this movie. So I guess that doesn't matter.
And so now he knows where to go. And so Tyler and Jenny, they make it to shore with the sword. They thumb a ride in the back of a freight truck because Jenny does the thing where she lifts her skirt and goes,
Yep, that's how movies work.
That's how cartoons work.
Sure is.
And so Jenny examines his wounds. Tyler says he has worse. And he also mentions he's been lost for so long, but being on the run with her is much better, and that strikes a chord.
Yep.
And he then falls asleep and dreams about Ashurbanipal crossing an ocean of fire, trying to reach White Palace on the other side before getting attacked by the dead who are being tortured in the flame. And so Tyler wakes up with a start. Jenny asks him to tell her all about the dream. And we go to a bedroom in Lorenzo's castle where Ashurbanipal sheds the cassock and begins removing the pipes from his waist. So he can't pipe anymore.
Oh no, yeah. Unable to pipe.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
He tells Lorenzo through a magical translation thingy about how while he was in hell, he watched the living world develop through the dreams of the living, and contemptuously compares the modern world to Babylon, who were like enemies of Assyria.
Yep.
And back in the truck, Jenny confirms that the places Tyler dreams about are landmarks in the underworld, and the White Palace, where Ashurbanipal is trying to go into dreams, is where the Lord of the Underworld lives. And
you made an X-Men Apocalypse reference earlier, but it's kind of Apocalypse from that movie.
A little bit.
It's the modern day is all reliant on technology, and I'm I'm so badass with my big magic that I'm just gonna everything they built will fall.
Yeah, you didn't even say that remotely like he said it, but I understand why.
Yeah, well, if you've seen the film, I'm paraphrasing slightly.
No more arrows.
No more superpowers. All snobbish.
And so back in, they reach Istanbul. They go looking for the Rebel Temple in the Fine Arts District, and rather amusingly, it's located in a modern skyscraper with a big corporate logo in the form of the Jed Pillar.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tyler presses the call button on the door panel, and a man named Dion appears on the screen, and they tell him that the dead king has risen, that they have his sword, and soon enough, the lobby is filled with men in like fancy-ass suits and haircuts, including the Dark Man from Rome, now with a bandage on his nose. Now here comes your favorite character. Malik comes out the front door, recognizes the scar on Tyler's palm, referencing the blood of the chosen.
Fucking God, Malik.
Are you ready for this yet, or should I keep going?
No, you keep going. You guys fucking going.
They are taken to the grand hall full of artifacts on display. They are surrounded by 24 temple brothers, and Tyler and Jenny introduce themselves and produce the cylinder seal, telling them they're trying to put the dead king back in the ground. And so Malik asks for the sword and then hands it over to an older man named Belbassa, who takes it away. And they tell Malik that Ashurbanipal is on an island, but will soon follow. And Malik confirms this, saying he is linked to his sword, which calls to him. So this is all the exposition right here. And so, on the origins of the temple, their forefathers were Egyptian priests enslaved by Ashurbanipal and forced to teach them their magic, how to protect themselves from demons and steal secrets from the gods. And they built an necropolis for him with a portal to the underworld inside. And when the king was wounded in battle, his plan was set in motion. He was allowed to die, but spells of return were woven around him. He was embalmed and placed in the sarcophagus, and his plan was to reach the Lord of the Underworld and make a deal. He would open the gates of hell and unleash demons on the world, and in return he would live again and rule as a mortal god king of the earth.
Oh my God. I mean, you Cliff noted it pretty well. Malik took like 3 pages to say what you just said, and I'm not even making that up.
We're not even done.
Oh my God. This is the worst scene in all of film.
But after Ashurbanipal died, the priest revealed his plan to his counterpoint. There's no mention of 15 seconds.
Yay.
But after Ashurbanipal died, the priests revealed his plan to his son, who wanted to keep his new throne. He buried the necropolis and hid the sarcophagus in the desert, and for centuries, the priests paid the tribal warlords to protect the tomb. And they felt they could not return to Egypt after 20 years in Assyria, so they settled down in Byzantium and founded the Rebel Temple to be there in case the dead king ever rose again. And Malik shows them into the Oculus Eye, a computer system designed to track relics, people with powers, etc. It's Cerebro, something Special Weapons doesn't have.
I think you should probably play the iPhone alarm noise to wake up the audience so that they can keep paying attention to the episode.
I don't even know what the iPhone alarm noise is. I don't have an iPhone.
It depends which one, but usually it's...
Oh, that one?
And then it slowly, it just repeats. I listened to it today, even though I had today off work. I was like, God fucking damn it, I didn't turn it off.
So yeah, that was Malik's big exposition scene.
Yay. Malik really be dumping that XP, damn.
You really hate this character.
God damn it. What does he do? What else does he do? Like, he just stands there. He shows up. They got to go to the Rebel Temple, right? He shows up and he sees that he's got the mark, and they go like, what is everything? And then he's just standing there and just drones on and on and on and on and on. And honestly, I'm going to say it. If you don't read most of what he says, the script is the exact same. Like, you gather so much of what he's saying. You just don't get his father and the betrayal and the this and the that. Like, all of this is just complete junk. You
could definitely condense it.
Condense it to like, all right, if I were a producer and I got this script, of the many notes that I would have, I would be like, maximum 1 page of this shit. Ideally half, but I get it. You got to get more in there. But this is ridiculous.
Okay, I'll say a page and a half. That's a minute and a half of screen time.
Maybe just keep cutting to Tyler like doing hand puppets so the audience doesn't fall asleep.
Or like montage it or something.
Yeah. Fast forward. You know how like
live to win till you die.
Yeah, you could do like what commercials for like drugs do, where it's just like, order this. It's gonna help your bowel movement. Side effects include instant death if you take it immediately. Try it to your doctor. Like this, you could do one of those. Just fast forward them. But whatever. I hate it. Next.
So they come to the infirmary where Belbassa examines their protection symbols, and Rabu, the Dark Man, tends to Tyler's wounds and deliberately hurts him as payback for the broken nose.
Mhm.
And Balbasa brings out a big ink stamp that he uses to renew their faded symbols. Make a big dunk sound like in Last Crusade.
A ka-chonk.
And he has Rabu lift his shirt, showing that the Temple brothers all have permanent tattoos instead. So the exposition continues.
Yep, sure does.
And he examines Tyler's hand scar, saying that he's linked to Ashurbanipal through blood magic, and the king chose him as he was the strongest, and this might help Tyler find him and maybe kill him. And so Jenny, who has changed into ill-fitting men's clothes, he leads her into the library where the brothers are frantically searching their archives for anything that might help. He says they seem terrified, and Balbassa's like, hey, it's been 25 centuries. We never really expected him to wake up again. Which I like. It feels real to me.
That's a good point.
And meanwhile, Ashurbanipal has arrived in Istanbul, riding in the back of Lorenzo's Rolls-Royce Phantom 5. Another Last Crusade
The
reference.
automobile, actually.
I call it a boat. No, nothing in here is as ridiculous as that version of the Nautilus. But okay, so yeah. And he's in the back. It's driven by Marco, and he's dressed in black pajamas, slippers, and a dressing gown with the crown on his head. He traded out the cassock
He sure did. And
for pajamas.
It's an improvement? Question mark?
He didn't even get real shoes. He got slippers.
Nah, slippers are ideal.
Yeah, he's going to kick back and start singing the Lazy Song. And like as he passes, like chaos starts breaking out. People attacking each other. Blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
And so, back inside the Rebel Temple, Tyler and Rabu, they make peace, and the latter explains the temple has holy seals over every brick and window, like in 13 Ghosts.
Yeah, no, the pacing is unbelievable because they show up at the Rebel Temple and they get let in immediately. And then Moloch goes on his famous exposition rant that I love so much and then says, well, if they come to attack us, we'll just go into the stronghold. And then later that same page, the mummy shows up and Malik goes down to the stronghold. It's not played for laughs. It's just that fast.
And so they also have a case because he's like, yeah, but can't stop a brick, which is a good point.
Mm-hmm.
But oh no, they have plenty of weapons, including blessed blades, and it's like Tyler has some skill with a sword, and grenades with some kind of mystical white powder, and high-tech machine guns, which Tyler seems to prefer.
Huh. I wonder why.
Yeah, we also have a solidly built stronghold deep under the building in case the walls are breached. Which, oh yeah, that stronghold.
Mm-hmm. The strongest hold of all the holds.
Yes, and so the 25 brothers who are present in the building, because apparently the rest are all elsewhere, they meet with Tyler and Jenny in the council room to prepare for the inevitable attack, and Malik says, oh yeah, Ashurbanipal is in constant pain and will stop at nothing to live again. And so the meeting continues. The Rolls pulls up in front of an office building, and Ashurbanipal just walks straight up the wall, like Dracula in Van Helsing.
Naturally.
And Malik is just finishing his speech, finally, about how they'll work together to destroy him when Tyler spots Ashurbanipal on the roof of the building across the street. And he blows with his mouth, creating cyclones around the temple and shattering the windows, sucking out 12 of the brothers to fall to their deaths. So down to 13 already. And so they flee to the stronghold. 6 feet thick granite walls, 1 foot thick steel vault door that they seal shut, and they have plenty of supplies. And Malik goes, here, Jenny, take the sword. And the warriors all line up in front of the door, with Tyler promising to protect her. And so back on the rooftop, Ashurbanipal raises his fist, brings a huge column of water from the Bosporus. So we're doing Mummy Returns now.
Oh, yeah, of course. Did we ever stop doing Mummy Returns?
Yeah, we did. We made Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Yeah, and it was better.
Oh, you're going to make so many people angry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just piss everybody off.
And he, slams it down on top of the temple, and this oh-so-sealed and safe stronghold starts flooding, and they're like, oh, shit. And it cuts off the escape tunnels they have below them as well.
Yep.
This hilariously useless stronghold. And
it's
so
the most secure stronghold of all time.
And so they suggest climbing out to the Hall of the Pharaohs, which has strong doors and no windows. And so they stand on top of each other like a barrel of monkeys to a vent shaft that just connects the two places.
Naturally.
And Jenny gets sent up first with the sword. When she gets there, Ashurbanipal already figured that out. He lifts her away and reclaims the sword, completing his power. He cuts down an obelisk with the sword. The room is filled with Egyptian artifacts, which falls over the vent, forcing Tyler back down into the stronghold. But then they're like, oh wait, there's a freight elevator, and so they climb out of that to escape.
Only shot, he also yells.
Yeah, this super secure stronghold with a vault door has 3 other exits. It's not that secure.
No. Whoo, baby, no.
See, I like the Rebel Temple. I like all the stuff they do. This is dumb.
It's a cool idea, and it's not that badly executed, except for Malik. And I feel like they could have kept at least some of this, and they just chose not to.
Yeah, because it's expensive, man. We got to pay all our money to Tom Cruise.
Yes.
And Russell Crowe.
Yes.
And Jake Johnson from hit film Jurassic World.
I do not guess.
Thanks for
Jurassic World? What the hell was he doing in Jurassic World?
He's one of the guys in the tech room, the one who has the Jurassic Park t-shirt.
Oh, yeah. Hit memorable role, that guy.
The first Jurassic World wasn't that bad.
No, it's not a bad movie at all, but you would never consider that a Jake Johnson movie. Cane's Point, I forgot he was in it.
He's like one of the only people who doesn't come back.
Yeah, exactly. He probably would have improved those sequels.
Yeah, because he was making hit movies, The Mummy and Tag.
Mm-hmm. Tag, mind you, which is actually great. I just watched it recently.
I've never actually seen it. I just know it as like the movie Jeremy Renner was doing instead of Infinity War.
Yeah, he has the same haircut. It's great.
At least it's not the Endgame haircut.
Right.
And so Tyler runs out the front doors, using his hand to track Ashurbanipal, and Malik joins him, and they jump into Malik's Maserati for a car chase.
Baby. Let's go.
That's actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Spates likes writing these sports cars into his script, like Dracula's supercar in Van Helsing.
Oh my god, if I could stand the supercar in Van Helsing, man.
And so Ashurbanipal, he does the thing from Bruce Almighty where he sweeps the cars aside to like open a path. And he confirms Jenny can speak Akkadian, and he uses a bag of herbs that he got from somewhere to bring down a thick fog down on the city.
What if Dracula just drove his supercar into Wendy's? Would that be allowed?
Drive-through.
No, literally drive-through.
Well, we've established through conversation that Demeter Dracula could go to Wendy's.
Yeah, he's fine. Okay, let's say he's driving into your house. Like, does that count as him entering? I think he's literally entering, but...
If he lets go of the wheel and the car accidentally on purpose crashes into the house, maybe that counts.
Yeah, he's just setting things in motion. He's not necessarily choosing to go in there.
Okay, let's get back to it.
Whatever, sorry.
And so Malik and Tyler have to dodge cars, nearly crashing into them in the fog, while Ashurbanipal begins crossing the suspension bridge over to Asia. Having cleared it with his powers, the car's all piled up on either end because he's a dick like that. And so he uses magic to make sure Jenny stays in the car, and then he stands on the running board of the car. He rips the fucking door off. Dude, don't do that to a Rolls Royce.
No, come on, man. It's like that scene in Mission Impossible. Blow it up. But it's such a nice car. Yeah, blow it up anyway.
Yeah, and then we take the shit car in Mission Impossible 7.
They sure do.
And he starts slashing the vertical support cables on the bridge, making its way. This is a cool sequence. Tyler and Malik, they get out of the Maserati and continue past the pile up on foot. Ashurbanipal leaves the car, goes to the middle of the bridge, and so Jenny tries to get out of the car but fails, tries to get Marco to drive away, but it's no use. Ashurbanipal walks to the left side of the bridge, cuts down the main cable, and his half of the bridge starts to sink towards the water. He pulls Jenny off the car, leaps off the bridge, lands on Lorenzo's yacht, and that's like crackerjack timing. Mm-hmm. And Tyler and Malik run to the broken edge of the bridge, but the yacht has already disappeared into the thick fog. And so on the deck, Jenny is met by the possessed Lorenzo, now haggard and unshaved, who says, "Welcome to hell."
Killer lines, killer dialogue, killer everything.
And so Tyler and Malik, they rush back to the Rebel Temple, where the whole thing is like a giant mess. And they meet with Dayan, Rabu, and Balbasa in the Oculus chamber and use the damaged but still working technology to figure out where he's headed. And he'll be making for the necropolis, which is now buried beneath an Iraqi military base near Mosul. And Tyler wants to get there ahead of the king, and the others agree to go with him and help. And so on the boat, which is called the Libertine, you must be a big Johnny Depp fan.
Oh yeah, big Libertine energy.
Ashurbanipal forces Jenny to put on a dress from Lorenzo's collection, which is far too revealing from her tastes. And by the way, she opens one drawer where there's like a bunch of like slinky dresses, and opens another drawer and it's filled with sex toys, and she's like, "Oh, Lorenzo, you perv," which is not a great joke.
No, it's not. Both Lorenzo and then Ashurbanipal is also they're not great in terms of sexual predators. They're not.
No, not at all. I mean, I've seen that handled worse in movies.
Yeah, but that's because they're, Hollywood, man and woman on screen.
And when he sees, "Oh man, it's been so lonely."
That's like the peak. That's the pinnacle.
I don't have any money.
Then why'd you order a pizza then?
And so he sees that she has like the ink stamps on her body, and then he just blows them off with his breath, which was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Oh yes, I haven't tasted anything in thousands of years, but once I become fully restored, you shall be the first."
Gee, how can we make our villain even more evil? I know. Let's make him a sexual predator too. Yay.
Thankfully, that's cut in the next one.
Thankfully, which you couldn't possibly keep in because it's Sofia Boutella now.
No,
I guess you could possibly.
You maybe
keep
could.
in. Probably
Yeah.
could.
I mean, she's basically like perving on Tom Cruise the whole movie.
Yeah, that's a good point.
56-year-old Tom Cruise.
That's because Tom Cruise produced it. He's
Well,
like, this is a great idea. What if all the flashbacks and visions were just her walking up and kissing me?
Yeah, it's like how Ron Perlman is like, yeah, getting to play Hellboy is great because I get to make out with a young, beautiful woman.
Yeah. Doug Jones is like, playing Hellboy is great is because I get to watch that.
No, Shape of Water is where he got that.
Yeah, he finally got his comeuppance as the exact same creature.
This was a weird side tangent.
Boy, was it.
And so he then takes Jenny to the yacht's lounge, where Lorenzo is bartering safe transit for them over a satellite phone call with some general guy we never meet. Ashurbanipal hands her a scroll saying he needs a reader for the ritual, and that Lorenzo is too stupid to fit the purpose. That's pretty funny. He uses a magical compulsion, but it's unnecessary as Jenny wants to read the scroll anyways. And so Tyler and the rest are traveling down the Turkish coast in a speedboat, and he points to a place on the coast of Cyprus where he wants them to stop, saying he used to work there. And so Jenny, she fights the compulsion, draws a mandala on her hand and pen, stamps it on her chest, allowing her to move. She grabs a satellite phone, calls Professor Shepard, and who is in the Baghdad Museum, and begins to tell him what's going on in the galley. So in the galley, Ashurbanipal, he's making a city plan in oil when Lorenzo enters and alerts him to what Jenny is doing. I'm like, why didn't you just stop her yourself? Mm-hmm. He interrupts her while she's in the middle of mentioning something that must be done, brushes the satellite phone, and Jenny says Tyler will come for her, and he's like, actually, I'm counting on that, which I swear that line has been in 1,000 movies, including Batman Forever.
Yep, every single one. I'm counting on it. It was my plan all along.
I meant to be captured.
That's right up there with, we only have one shot. One shot's all we need.
The Enterprise is the only ship in range.
Goddamn. Dude, I swear to God, like there's like 20 pages left. It's all kind of useless.
And
like,
so
it's exactly the third act that you think it's going to be, and there's no surprises.
It's not a bad third act, but it could be condensed.
Yeah.
And so Tyler, the others, they arrive at a black market open air arms market in Cyprus, and the well-dressed Temple brothers, they're like, Tyler's like, yeah, people who dress like you only show up here if they're complete badasses. So they're all impressed. And so this was set up earlier. Tyler went undercover with arms dealers, so he knows about all this shit. So that is at least established.
Yep.
And so they load up on incendiary rounds. Tyler buys a helicopter, which they then use to get underway.
Yep.
And so the army base in Mosul, a limousine with Syrian flags, escorted by armed trucks, pulls up to the gate. Ashurbanipal, dressed in a black Arab robe, so he's, upgraded his outfit again. Probably because someone says, let's not set the climax of the movie with a dude in pajamas.
Right, we gotta change wardrobes again, baby. Let's go.
And so steps out of the limo, chops up both the guards and the gate open with his sword, and he then takes on a tank single-handedly. And tired of fighting everyone, he thrusts his sword into the ground and mutters a spell, making all of the remaining soldiers, including base commander Saif al-Rahal and U.S. Army Ranger Lieutenant Quinn, fall unmoving to the ground. Him fighting a tank is awesome.
And then right as the awesome is happening, he's like, you know what? I'm sick of being awesome. I'm going to do a generic boom.
Complete with the Inception score.
Yeah, you know that when he does that, it's going to be like a... It's one where the doom
the Aquaman sound?
The Aquaman doom. It's like, great, that was cool. And now it's just the doom.
I never would have noticed that if you guys didn't point it out. It just didn't stick out to me at all.
It's all over the place, man. It's mostly Ian pointing it out. And then once he pointed it out, I was like, okay, well, I can't unhear it now.
Gets out of a chair. Doom.
Very important that she stood up out of the chair.
And then, of course, if they would play the action drums here. His path cleared, Ashurbanipal calls to Jenny and Lorenzo, who follow him down into the caves.
Yay, the caves.
And so Tyler and the Temple brothers soon arrive, realizing they're too late, and they use Belboss's gear to start reviving the soldiers. And Tyler revives Lieutenant Quinn, who tells them that, the three of them went down the caves, and down in the necropolis, which is a Greek word, by the way, so Ashurbanipal shouldn't be calling it that. He leads Lorenzo and Jenny to the chamber with the underworld gate, which is a mandala, which is a Tibetan thing, dumbass. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong about that, so Don't come correcting me in the comments, I don't care.
Yep.
But it's 7 interlocking gold circles set into the floor with these runes etched into them. And he places Jenny on an elevated lectern, ordering her to read the ritual and Lorenzo to watch her. And this Lorenzo guy is getting a lot of airtime.
Yeah, he's way too much.
Scotch.
I'll take Lorenzo trying to be evil in weird scenes over Malik talking scenes.
I'll take it over Russell Crowe talking scenes from the movie.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And so Ashurbanipal steps onto the mandala, and as Jenny reads, the circles begin spinning, and he's doing like a weird ritual dance from rune to rune. And as the ritual continues, they're spontaneously burned into one of 3 pillars in the chamber. And on the surface, Balbasa revives Saif, and they fill the revived soldiers in on the situation, equipping them with the sacred blades, holy salts, and incendiary rounds. Like, these guys were carrying a fucking shitload of ammo with them. If they can outfit an entire military base.
Of course.
And then a Land Rover shows up, and Professor Shepard finally becomes relevant and goes, "Hey, Tyler, the first spell raises the city of the dead, the second revives the king fully, and the third makes him immortal, so he has to be killed between the second and the third."
Yep.
So at the gate, Jenny finishes reading the first spell, and Ashurbanipal paces a mystical phrase, and it locks into place. The walls begin to shake, and on the surface, as Ty's getting filled with ammo, dark clouds block the sun, rifts open in the ground, like the city kind of comes up, but not really, and the reanimated dead begin to crawl out of the rifts and attack the soldiers, including skeletal fiends, muscular ghouls, and eyeless horrors. So you get eyeless horrors.
Yay. I mean, varieties of monsters. It's a graveyard smash. I'm in it.
It's a cool fucking battle scene to end the movie with.
Mm-hmm.
No way they would have spent money on this.
No, it would have been like if a page is a minute, you can clearly see that it's 10, 20 seconds, which is exactly how long it would be in the movie, if not less.
And so Tyler and Malik, they make a break for the caves, and Professor Shepard, cornered by a hawk-headed demon, throws a bag of salts at it and kills it.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, guys, if you need to beat demons, just go to your local grocery store and buy a shitload of Morton salt.
Yeah, well, what else do you need? Have you seen any movie ever?
No stakes, no holy fire, just salt.
Yeah, that's all you need.
They're basically slugs.
I've seen Supernatural. That means ghosts.
I've seen the Constantine TV show that only got 15 episodes, 13
and
episodes.
Many crossovers.
Which I haven't seen because I don't care about the CW shows.
Yeah, I dropped off after a while.
It wasn't even many crossovers. It was like an Arrow crossover, and then he was just in Legends of Tomorrow for 3 seasons.
Hey, by definition, that means that every one of those is a crossover.
But okay, where the fuck was that? They discover that the cave's been used as an ammunition storage, and Tyler tracks Ashurbanipal with his hand. And so Malik warns him that the necropolis was built here because the barrier between worlds is thin, and that the Dead King's spells will tear the boundary and allow the underworld to cross over. We already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
They find an open stone gate flanked by guardian statues, a brazier-lit passage on the other side, and the guardians come to life and attack. The gate starts to lower, so Malik fights the demons, and Tyler does the Indiana Jones thing, where he rolls under the door, but I don't think Tyler wears hats.
That took me way too long to get that joke.
Or he does the epic Geordie maneuver from The Next Generation.
Right.
I'll have to show you that meme after we're done.
Man, that iconic Indiana Jones grabbing the hat scene where he slowly makes out with Marion, and then it zooms out, and then he grabs the hat off of the laundry rack before it goes to black.
And so, Tyler just manages to push open a heavy bronze door to the gate chamber, arriving just as Jenny is reading the second spell. And so he gets attacked by Lorenzo wielding a dagger and punches him in the face until he passes out. So yeah, good job, Lorenzo.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler goes to Jenny, stabbing her with the ink kit, snapping her out of the trance by kissing her. Of course. Because, as Huey Lewis in the news would tell you, it's the power of love.
It sure is. It is hip indeed to be square.
Hey, Patrick Bateman thinks so.
Mm-hmm.
And so he tells her to finish the second spell quickly, but this is where she tells him that Ashurbanipal needs to buy his soul back from the underworld with a life, namely Tyler's. So, that changes nothing.
Oopsies.
Ashurbanipal then notices his arrival and attacks, with the two of them fighting on top of the mandala. And then the Dead King cuts Tyler's sword in two because I got tired of typing his name out all the time. But he holds off Ashurbanipal's attack with his temple sword while balancing atop the rotating mandala. So this is turning into a pirates fight.
Yep, it's leaning into the Brendan Fraser mummy movie goofiness.
Yeah. And where was I? Jenny finishes the second spell, and Ashurbanipal bursts with golden light, restoring him to human form before Tyler cuts him with the sword, confirming that he's mortal now. It's kind of similar to the Brendan Fraser movie again, because they make him mortal at the end and then stab him.
Yeah, that is exactly the plot. Yeah, is that one of the plots in the Mummy sequels?
No.
No, yeah, I think they all end the same way, where everything just kind of explodes and it says the end.
They will set him on fire. There's two where they set him on fire. In the third one, he walks into the swamp at the end. And then in the fourth one, the room just collapses on top of him.
So it's always a building blowing up or something stupid. Okay.
Yeah, weirdly, they actually tied it off so you couldn't do any more sequels after that one.
That is weird, as if that would have stopped them.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't have, but it's confirmed that the only guy who knows how to make the special fucking Lipton tea, Karis kills him, and then that's it.
Yep, that makes sense.
But I mean, this is the series where they don't even explain how the Wolfman comes back in House of Dracula.
No, they do not care at all.
Because they cared a little bit before that point.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to have continuity.
For Meets the Wolfman, they put him in a block of ice to make the timelines line up, as if they cared a lot about the lore, and then after that point, they just go off the rails.
Yeah, and so Ashurbanipal orders Jenny to read the third spell, but she's about to burn the scroll before Lorenzo gets it's like his fourth or fifth wind at this point, and gets up behind her and attacks her. Mm-hmm. And so on the surface, an army of demons now erupts from the earth and attacks the Temple Brothers, before Malik appears and blows a bunch of them up with an RPG from the caves, and tells them to hold and trust Tyler to do his part.
Yep.
And the two simultaneous fights continue in the gate chamber, Lorenzo knocking out or possibly killing Jenny because it's ambiguous the way it's worded, and taking the scroll.
I think that what really would have improved the Rebel Temple's forces is if they had a small child run out and say, "Come on, citizens, let's fight together." And then they all have sticks, and then they all die in one hit.
Let's try spinning. That's a neat trick.
Yeah, small children movies always improve movies. Yay.
I mean, sometimes kids are fine in movies. Just in a lot of big movies, they suck.
There's 3 where they're great. That's it.
It Chapter 1.
No, they're fine in that one.
Okay, let's get back. Ashurbanipal knocks Tyler's pistol out of his hand, and as Tyler tries to retrieve it, lightning flashes in the cave, and they are teleported to a plane of misers in the underworld, where they are set upon by hands reaching up from the red earth. I like this whole trip through the underworld at the end. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the more weird it gets, the more I like it. The more the leaning into the crazy mythology stuff.
Yes, and so back at the third gate, Lorenzo starts to read the third spell. I thought he was too stupid for that movie.
More like a snide comment that's never addressed again.
Yes, and so Jenny sneaks up behind him, clamps a hand over the mouth, kicks him in the gut, flips him onto the mandala where a flash of lightning transports it to the Valley of the Blind, where he is swarmed and presumably killed by the eyeless thing. So bye, Lorenzo.
Yep.
Well, in reality, he should have gotten groped by the hands, since that would be poetic for his character.
Oh, yeah. Would have been better.
Lorenzo Weinstein Montanari, R.I.P.
Oh, well.
And so, back on the plane of misers, Ashurbanipal knocks Tyler's sword out of his hands, and the ground hands just crowd surf the sword away from him. Lightning strikes again, teleporting them back to the gate. Ashurbanipal is about to finish Tyler off, but the spinning mandala brings him right back to his pistol. They get teleported again, this time to a stone spire sinking into the sea of fire. Tyler fills Ashurbanipal full of bullets, takes his sword away, knocks his crown into the fire, and impales the king on his own sword. And I love this part because he can't, they're not linked anymore, so he can't understand what he's, so in Akkadian he says, "This isn't over." He's like, "Can't understand what you're saying," and then yeets him into the fire. That's pretty cool.
Great. Yep.
And so Tyler kneels down as the spire is about to collapse in flames, and he's like he stopped this thing, so he's okay with dying. I kind of like that character beat.
Yep, that's not bad.
It works better in the next draft, I think, but we'll get there. And so the caves start to, so she manages to read the right spell, teleporting back to the gate. They kiss again as the caves start to rumble. On the surface, the dead and the demons disintegrate, Phantom Menace style, and then the Necropolis recedes into the earth.
Yep.
And Tyler and Jenny soon emerge from the caves, and we cut to a rebel temple safe house in Athens, where Tyler has made a full temple brother, received a full set of permanent tattoos, so he's now a badass.
And Malik can just not stop expositing, even now at the end of the climax.
And he says, "More evil will rise, temple will be ready this time." Yeah, you were ready before.
Christ, just keep talking about how ready you are.
And so Jenny and Tyler walk through the streets of Athens, wondering what to do next. Like, oh, we can go to Mexico. Good hiding places, good archaeology. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Peru next.
There's no mummies there. God damn it. Suddenly the sound cuts out. It turns out to be anti-sound tech used by, I fucking love this name, it's so stupid, Major Dyson Krakauer of the Special Weapons Group.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
He says he knows what they've done and offers to clear their names in exchange for heading to Egypt, where they have detected unusual energy at the sunken city of Heraklion. So they now both work for two completely separate, unconnected shadow organizations.
Oh, yeah, of course. Gotta have multiple.
Yeah, this is one thing I like about this draft as opposed to the next one's, because the next one just doesn't resolve them being wanted.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it just kind of goes, hey, we're still wanted fugitive, guys. Remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go to Jenny and Tyler approaching the site by boat, where archaeologists are retrieving a black Egyptian sarcophagus from the sea with a net. And Jenny tips them out of the boat while trying to get a closer look. And as they cling to the net, she reads the inscriptions on it, telling Tyler, it's a queen. And then it ends, and we get 2 pages of like the historical background. So it's teasing, it's teasing Sophia Botella.
Yes, it ends with wacky hijinks with horrible sequel bait and this odd cliffhanger. And man, the climax couldn't just be no. You got to have Malik show up again and keep talking about his organization because he hasn't done that enough. And then it just ends with this. Yeah, no, this script is
it's
trash.
I think it's okay.
It's not the worst.
It's not the best. It's not the best Spates script I've read, and it's not the worst.
It's weird because it so needs to be revised. But then I saw the revision and I was like, wow, you took like all the wrong fucking notes out of this.
Well, the revision was almost a fucking year later.
Yeah. No, it's why did you go such a strange direction? I feel like defeated because like I've been waiting for like a decent mummy movie ever since the Boris Karloff version. I mean, you've had 100 years to try. You got a win. You got one.
Yeah, you got one win, and you got a really successful movie that people fucking like.
Successful ones that are not the greatest, but it got a trilogy, so you're making some money off that.
It got 2 subpar sequels, and a bunch of spin-offs no one gives a shit about.
Yep, I have no desire to watch the animated Mummy show. I'm sure it's just as bad.
I mean, it got 2 seasons. But that was back when they gave everything a cartoon.
Yeah, it's back when they did not really care much.
They gave the Matthew Broderick Godzilla a cartoon, and that movie bombed.
They really did. It's not. Yeah, no. If I had to give this out of 10, because I'm from hot quality content, I'd probably say 2 or 3. Not the worst. 2 or 3 points higher than 2017's Mummy. I wish it were a lot better.
2 or 3. Wow.
Yeah, no, I was not into it. No, the ideas and the concepts, but just the execution was just awful.
I will say I think the horror elements are much better handled.
Oh yeah. The horror is those are the interesting parts of the script. Like without those, you got a nothing burger.
And so I think that covers our coverage of that first script.
Mm-hmm. This one, I can already tell this is going to be we're going to breeze through this because it's like 50% the exact same script.
Yeah, just with some stuff changed. But for the moment, we are going to take a quick ad break. All right. And so with that, some stuff went down in between this draft and the next one we have. And what happened was basically that, so as we mentioned before, Len Wiseman left. He yoked out of there.
Mm-hmm.
But Universal still considered it a priority, and I guess this was considered satisfactory enough that they kept continuing with this instead of the Billy Ray draft, which I would love to see what that is.
My man wrote Achy Breaky Heart and then decided to write a Mummy script.
No, he wrote fucking Richard Jewell, among other things.
Okay, the world will know his name and the truth.
And I believe it was that September, let me get the page up, they hired Andy Muschietti.
Hey, that guy.
Who had only done Mama at this point. So yeah, he takes over in September. While he's still on board is when this rewrite happens. Now, the next script is dated March 10th, 2014, and it's been revised by Spates along with Alex Kurtzman himself and Roberto Orsi. And what makes this interesting is that they announced in April that year that they were splitting their creative partnership because they were focusing on different things. So this is one of the last things they did together.
Yep. They were like, let's work together. And they read the script and they're like, let's stop.
Yeah, and then Orsi doesn't have a story credit on the movie like Kurtzman does. So their last credited thing working together, you know what it is?
Oh, please.
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh, my God. That's right. They did. They co-made that.
Yes, they did. Them and like 4 other writers. But okay, so this one is, you know, it can only get better when Alex Kurtzman is writing on it himself.
Of course, it only improves.
And so from that, we'll just get right into the bastard. And so it's the opening. It's basically the same opening scene with just like a few differences. So we have the SEAL team in a helicopter instead of the oil pipeline gag. And Tyler's last name has thankfully been changed. He's now Tyler Jordan.
Yeah, because that's... What do you mean, thankfully? Oh, yeah, Tyler Jordan, that's the...
It's better.
First of all, get a last name. Second, it's still the kind of name that you hear. Like, when they announced Extraction on Netflix, and they're like, Chris Hemsworth plays Tyler Rake. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
So you just don't like the name Tyler.
I guess not. I don't like generic guy names. Like, John Wick is like the only exception because the movies are so good.
Like, Jordan isn't great, admittedly, and it doesn't roll off the tongue, but it's better than him being named Tyler Colt.
Listen, I am highly opinionated on names of people unrelated to their character.
Yes, you did a fucking ranking video of president names.
Yeah, it wasn't my idea, but I was so on board with it.
And so what I like about this draft is that they actually take some time to characterize the SEALs a little bit before they die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they get some humorous banter where they're basically just ripping off the helicopter scene in Predator. But it's effective enough. Like, you get them, like, bantering about Gomez's cologne. And we find out that Monroe's full name is Jason Monroe, and he's, like, Tyler's best friend. And Tyler's like, I've never lost a man, have I? Even though this is looking bad, we don't have intel. We rocked our last mission, blah, 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 we'll do good. So they establish character here, which I like.
They establish character, but they establish... Even if you have not read the first script and you just read this, okay, there's an opening scene with a protagonist and another character who gets a name, and they establish, gosh, you're my best friend ever, and we're so happy together to go on this death mission. Oh, by the way, I've never lost a man. Like, wow. Like, the most I'm gonna die of all time.
Yeah, true. I mean, that's not unfair, but it's more than what we got in the other one.
I guess. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because it's either... not enough to justify it, or it's, like, predictable.
And so they, like, condense the dialogue down in the control room, and this version, they now have helmet cams where they're, like, live streaming their mission.
On YouTube.
On Twitch.
Yeah.
And so they enter the tomb. It's mentioned that the radiation is reading 30 million curies, which should be killing them.
Goodness me.
And so Tyler actually pushes back against, like, mission control a little bit more about going in, even though it's clearly not what they're looking for, but he gets firmly ordered to keep going. And they go, oh, they're 300 miles outside the green zone. We'll cover this shit up if anything goes wrong, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this one, there's a Tomb Raider still alive further in who's trying to chip a hole through a sealed door. And he turns around, he's possessed, and his pupils are split like in the final movie.
Yep.
Which is a cool visual.
Cool visual. Saw the trailer. I was like, a cool visual. Yay. And then it was not as cool as the visual.
And so they gun him down, and then the whispering starts affecting the men. Vale gets possessed, attacks Carver, they kill each other. Jason attacks Tyler, forcing him to kill his best friend, so it means a little more. The dude in the control room has his pupil split when he blows his brains out. And so Tyler tries to get out of there. He runs into the reanimated Tomb Raiders, crawls through the hole that the possessed robber chipped open, sliding down an incline into the sarcophagus chamber. Ooh, fun slide.
Let's go, fun slide.
And the scene plays out the same. There's no fiery face, and for some reason the sarcophagus is embedded in the ceiling. And Tyler escapes. And we get, like, the unkempt trucker scenes like this. This is the stupidest part. He has a dog that he's taught SEAL hand signals to.
Yeah, his character points that out later. It's like, yeah, if you're good at training a dog to, like, respond to things, SEAL signals are not, like, a crazy thing to teach them.
Yeah, but it's just so weird that they put this in here. It's like, oh, let's humanize the character by giving him a dog.
Of course, it makes him likable, so you care.
There's a Stallone movie called The Specialist where he just picks up a cat on the street and takes it home.
Because he's that good of a guy.
Yeah, that's that's Stallone doing like an erotic thriller. It's real bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, he goes like, Forrester is like in the truck stop watching him this one. He has like a longer conversation with this waitress who flirts with him. His dream, he has like, it's like his dreams in this are preceded by like weird stuff happening in the room that he sees. And in this one, it's a muscled, tattooed man facing away from the camera. He takes a ceremonial dagger from slave priests who in this have the 4-barred cross on their necklaces. sacrifices several warriors who die willingly, and they get placed in a series of coffins arranged in a ring of pillars. And then we see the man using a sculpting tool to construct an elaborate key out of bronze, because instead of a sword and a crown, we get generic MacGuffin number 12.
Yep.
That's broken into 3 pieces, because of course it is.
Naturally.
And then he gets his head shaved by priests, who then wrap his body in bandages before the high priest hammers the pipe into his throat. And we see his screaming face, which is overlapping with the waitress's scream as Tyler comes to, his hand clutching her arm in an iron grip. And so he just leaves. There's no dumb sea bass fight. There's no arrest. He just gets immediately approached by Forster, and they just, and so they talk about like the dog. It's like, oh, you taught him seal signals?
And it's more or less the same recruitment, but they cut all the magic artifacts.
Yeah, they cut a lot of like extraneous dialogue in this one, which I do like.
Yeah, but A, they cut some cool stuff. B, the dialogue is kind of worse.
It does get worse in some places, like especially Tyler's dialogue.
Yeah. There's a lot of
There's at least 3 really stupid attempts at humor.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get Jenny's introduction, which is similar, but this time Lorenzo's last name, he's Montaigne.
Yep.
And his home is a chateau in the south of France. And she gets brought in to examine part of the key we saw in Tyler's dreams, which condenses down what's going on. And he says, oh, it was found in the Crusader fortress of Arwad. And she's like, cleans it. And she sees symbols seem to possess some sort of meaning to her. And she points out some of them are the names of demons. And she starts reading the inscription. She tells him, and there's this whole thing about how, like, my grandmother was Gaelic. There's no word for no in Gaelic. And then she says something in Gaelic and tells him to leave the room.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts reading the inscription. I noticed the text here, which is telling the Ishtar story again, is in a different color.
Yeah,
so
I noticed that too.
So my guess is that Kurtzman and Orsi took that out, and Spades is like, no, I'm putting that back in. Yeah,
you can tell, like, if you were to like ignore all the weird green text, then the scene still reads, like what does it say? And then they wait, and then later she could just say they're the names of demons, but instead they have this big explainy boy here.
And she also doesn't steal anything from him in this version.
She does not.
And so we get a little bit different information when Tyler talks to Forster in the bar. We learn that like he's heard of special weapons before. It wasn't radiation in the tomb, but an unknown form of energy. And we get this stupid thing where Forster says, well, whatever's in there, I want. He goes like, I want it? Who workshopped your pitch? A cranky 5-year-old?
Dialogue's worse.
And so he's saying like, oh yeah, apparently there's Critcom channels have said that terrorists have heard about the tomb and are also after it. Ooh.
Very spooky.
But then Tyler refuses. Jenny goes back to this time. It's an ancient Roman dig site in Italy. Shepard is now Audrey Shepard, who's like motherly and whatnot, expressing concern over her activities. And so Tyler, we get the truck accident, but the dream this time is of the dead king climbing the endless stair, which leads to a courtyard called Hell's Landing, and then the gate to the upper world, which is above some stairs above that. But the gate closes, the king gets dragged back down by tendrils, so all the underworld stuff is almost completely cut.
Yep, naturally.
Which is understandable for budget reasons, but is unfortunate.
I mean, it would only be quick shots anyway. It wouldn't be that expensive.
And if Muschietti was directing this, you know exactly how that CGI would look.
Oh, man.
Guys, it's supposed to look weird.
Parts are, not all of it.
Yeah. And so, he screaming fades. We get the screaming fading again. We get the crash scene, only instead of tipping over a cliff, it hits a tree. And so Tyler gives the dog to the cute waitress and, calls Forster. He says, I want a plane with an anti-echo chamber. And this time he's like, I want the bodies of my men recovered, which immediately makes him a better character. Because he just doesn't give a shit at all in the other one.
Yep, not at all. But okay, he has a dog now and cares about some men sometimes.
Yeah, well, the caring thing, the dog is stupid, I'll give you that.
Yeah, no, like some changes are like, hey, this is actually genuinely kind of better. And then some changes it's like, I feel like you changed it just to change it, The
characterization of Tyler is the big thing I think is better, but there's other stuff that's bad.
Easily.
And so he's also like, I'm not riding the plane with that thing again. And so Jenny gets a call from Forster. She packs up her stuff. And we see she has like a photo of her younger self with her parents. So we're getting, backstory.
Oh my god. The story is so boring.
Yeah, I've seen it in other scripts too, like almost identical.
Really? Well, it's funny because we were talking about the opening scene, how like there's characterization now. It's the same thing with this backstory. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because without it, she's flat. And with it, it's unengaging. They needed to give her an arc, just like junk about parents and...
But yeah, her backstory isn't great. It's almost identical to the one Tomb Raider script I covered.
Really?
And the payoff for it is almost exactly the same too. And so she leaves the cash she got from Lorenzo with Shepard. And so she arrives, this time they're at an Air Force base in Turkey. And the scenes are all kind of moved around. She conflicts with Tyler a bit more. And she lifts off all her degrees and credentials. And he's like, I've been inside the tomb. I also took 2 semesters at junior college. God, I hate those fucking lines he has. He has like one more that sticks out to me.
Yeah, if anything, Tyler Colt was more consistent of a character than Tyler Jordan.
If you took the goofy stuff out in his dialogue, immediately he'd be the better version.
Mm-hmm.
And Jenny also notices his hand tremors when discussing the tomb, and she tries to get out of the job because of it, and so the blackmail is moved later. They fly out to Iraq. We get preparation sped through in a montage, which is good for pacing. And he explains no weapons, no sound, anti-sound measures, but this time the headsets have closed-circuit comms, which defeats the point.
Yep.
He helps Jenny prep her hazmat suit. We get this weird sexual tension scene where it's like she has an infinity symbol tattooed at the base of her neck.
Yep. Yay.
And it's like, that's almost worse than him like checking out her midriff in the movie.
Yeah, I feel like Michael Bay revised this script.
I mean, that's not even sexual. It's the base of her neck.
I know.
That's not even a fetish as far as I know.
Nope, yeah, but apparently this is just what sets this male producer off.
Now imagine the Tarantino rewrite.
Oh my god, where is that infinity symbol? At the bottom of her body.
It's on the top of her, it's on the sole of her dirty ass feet.
That you just can't get out of the fucking frame.
The movie critic is just going to be about feet.
I swear to God.
They go into the tomb. This time they have mercs instead of engineers. Retrieve the bodies, and they expand on the description of, I don't even remember this part, unspecified remains. Oh, okay, so the unspecified remains from the previous draft are now his men in this one.
Yep.
Okay, I took these notes back in February. Forgive me, audience.
I took mine recently, but they're so little.
Yeah, and we already mentioned before that they highlight the statues this time.
Yep.
And now I have fucking hiccups.
That's all right. You're only doing an audio show.
That's what this script does to me, I guess.
Yeah, tortures you. That's all right. If I can do a screenplay archaeology while actually being sick, I think you can get through hiccups.
Yeah, I've done one sick, because I did one when I was recovering from having goddamn shingles.
Ooh, shingles are tough.
Yeah, and so scurvy dog, which you fix by eating lemons.
Yep, yeah, the only one that does that.
That's even funnier.
It is. It is.
Yeah, and so the tomb exploration gets condensed. There's no helmet removal argument. Sarcophagus is removed, and it's placed in the shell outside the tomb. There's no tribal attack, because why have action in your action movie?
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Instead, Forster just says, we can't get a helicopter, then shoots Tyler with a tranq dart like an asshole.
But it wasn't the special super-duper science darts.
Oh, thank God he didn't mix his ammo.
Yeah, oh.
Movie will be over in like half an hour.
Oh my God.
Also, I made that saltine joke about Nick Morton earlier. There's like one needle drop in this script, and it's 16 saltines by the White Stripes.
Yeah, I remember. I was reading that, and I was like, I don't recognize it. And I played it. I was like, yeah, that's a real Mummy movie script song.
Yeah, and so Tyler, we get a dream sequence. I'm not even going to bother trying to preserve the surprise. Where he wakes up, he's tied down. Fucking like his men come to life, but oh no, they're the undead warriors from his dream. And then Jenny turns around, and she has like a demon face.
Scary for the audience, oh no.
And then he wakes up.
Wow. What an amazing twist. I've never seen that in any film ever made.
And so, it was just a dream. Forster's like, hey man, warlords were converging on the area for that action scene they were supposed to be in. But we cut it for time and budget, so I shot you with a tranq dart.
I'm so glad that was just a dream sequence. I was genuinely terrified.
And so we get a discussion about Ashurbanipal. Tyler mentions his dream. He repeats this chant he heard, which is Nisitu Damusu Kurada Erus. And Jenny's like, what do you know? And she goes like, it's Akkadian. Only 40 people speak Akkadian. It's not you. He goes like, I failed Spanish. Right, so there's 4 of those lines. The other one I was thinking of was later.
You know, honestly, during this episode, you've been a real Nisitu Damusu Goado Eros.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so they go to the plane crash scene, this time over England, as they've blown massively off course from Warsaw to they're coming over the cliffs of Dover. And it happens more or less the same way, only this time we see the possessed mercs kill each other. Then we see the ravens break open the plastic shell around the sarcophagus. And so Jenny's shoot is messed up by the plane breaking apart, and Tyler jumping out and catching up is described as happening in a single awesome shot.
Oh my goodness, it's so badass, and she's constantly in danger, and he keeps heroing her. Yay.
Yes, thank you, writers, for telling the director how to direct. Like, it would be cool if it was done that way.
Yeah, could be. Depends
But
how.
but then we cut to news footage of the crash, which occurred near Westminster Abbey, and we see that it is playing on a TV in an electronics shop in North London. And this is where we meet the Temple brothers, and oh boy, have they come down in the world since the last draft. They went from, like, badass rich people in suits to they hang out in a fucking, like, ghetto shop in London.
Yep. Yeah, it's like in Men in Black with, like, the VCR repair store that nobody goes into.
It's like the fucking store Samuel L. Jackson works in a Die Hard 3.
Yep.
And so we meet your favorite, Malik Dion, who for some reason is specified as wearing Beats by Dre headphones.
Sponsor. Maybe they paid them to put in the script, which is not how movies work.
And Rabu. And so they're describing here as looking normal. They're downgraded quite drastically. I wrote that in my notes. And so Dion just has 2 laptops and a police scanner. Get your systems online. Rabu, summon the others, which he does via text. He sends out one of those mass texts that sometimes just doesn't want to load.
Yeah, one of those that if you're in a work chat, you immediately silence as soon as you're in it.
So Tyler and Forster, they argue over whether they can contain the sarcophagus, and Forster still doesn't believe in it, and Jenny's like, oh yeah, the ravens, they're not a flock, they're an unkindness or a conspiracy. And so they cut down on a lot of stuff here, which is an improvement, so there's not all this back and forth with the ambassador. Forster's just like, yeah, I forged my orders, so we're going to be in deep shit, but don't worry, I can help you. And we get the mummy's first kill scene is the same, but he specifically stabs people in the side.
Yep.
And so while they're checking the crash site, Jenny translates that Akkadian phrase and says, the blood of the chosen will wake the king, blah, blah, blah. So we're getting to that faster.
I feel like the moment that she says this dialogue, everyone in the theater is like, oh, he's the chosen, I get it.
Well, yeah, they figure it out immediately because, like, he looks at his scar and Jenny's like, oh.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, the chosen one didn't show up when he was supposed to, and Tyler's like his badass replacement. So we get this added theme where the mummy is like breaking reflected surfaces because he doesn't like his face. Tyler and Jenny, they discuss his dreams. He says the Kingsguard dying with him was the custom. And he also mentions that the enslaved priests were building some sort of bronze arch. And she seems to know what he's talking about, that it's some kind of doorway. And here we get where people find, the mummy's victims. And she hears about the side wounds and she realizes he's attacking the liver, which Assyrians believed was the seat of the soul. Man, imagine if he stabbed like a chronic alcoholic.
Would have been a game changer.
That would have been so funny. And here, instead of Attila the Hun, she compares Ashurbanipal to Vlad the Impaler, cross with Genghis Khan.
Ooh.
Foreshadowing for Dracula Untold coming out.
Yeah, that's definitely what this is. I mean, I guess it is coming out in this year.
Well, this would have come out after, so it's backshadowing?
Backshadowing. That's exactly... Yeah, that would have been so good if that happens.
And so they hear more screams, which are coming from down the road at Westminster Abbey. If you want to talk about downgrades, the church the mummy like besieges and gets his shit from, it gets a downgrade through each draft and into the movie because it starts at the Vatican. Here it's Westminster Abbey, big important church in England. In the movie, it's some random ruin in a fucking field with cows.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I can see the budget cuts.
Oh yeah, big time.
And so they race around the corner, see clergymen fleeing from the abbey, prep the head inside. Forster gets his dart gun together. Tyler's got the incendiary rounds. And the Vatican sequence is condensed into like this one scene with a random priest trying and failing to use an exorcism prayer on the mummy. And I'm like, do Anglicans even have exorcism? I should have looked that up before we started.
Yeah, but like, even if they did...
Is it still Russell Crowe as the exorcist?
Yes. Yeah, I will say definitively yes.
Russell Crowe as Malik.
That movie did surprisingly well. They shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't that good either.
I didn't see it.
I watched it for free on Netflix.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. I was like, this is like the hype movie. Are you kidding me?
Russell Crowe is really the only reason to watch it.
Fair enough.
And so like, oh yeah, they get attacked by the reanimated priest. Forster puts him down with the poison cocktail, so it actually does something here. Jenny, loots the altar, takes an aspergillum, however you say it. It's a holy water sprinkler. Pours some nitric acid she happens to have on her into a silver chalice, making silver nitrate, which she says the Assyrians used to fight evil spirits. So now mummies are weak to silver.
Yep, that sounds a lot like an assumption, Miss Jenny.
So MI5 teams responding to the chaos soon sweep into the Abbey, stopping by the security station where they catch a glimpse of the 3 armed people over the cameras and consider them suspects, rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have followed the mummy's cry into the crypt where he has torn open multiple tombs. He soon opens a crusader tomb, finding an object wrapped in cloth in its hands, and the skeleton starts to reanimate thanks to the mummy's touch, but he just smashes its skull and takes the item. It turns out to be a short bronze scepter in 3 segments, each with its own rune. So we're starting to see more of the movie creep into this. So It's in London, we've got Crusader Knights.
Yep, the Crusader Knights are a big deal in this script, and I feel like they're just passively mentioned in the final product.
Yeah, and it's weird as they're like one of the first shots of the movie, too.
Yeah, they're as if it's going to be a big deal, and it never is.
There's that. Did you see that weird second trailer they did where it was like half interview footage with the cast?
I think so. I watched a lot of Dark Universe material recently. You'll see the Devil's League second trailer coming soon. So
yeah, and they like highlight the fucking Crusader stuff in that trailer. It was weird.
Yeah, as if that ever matters in the script.
It matters in the script. It doesn't matter in the movie.
Guess I meant like the script in the 2017.
Yeah.
I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, we'll never know.
That's okay. We know a lot, so that's fine.
We know plenty.
We know so much about what used to be the movie.
Yeah, Tyler, Jenny, and Forster, they arrive. They see the mummy. The incendiary rounds don't work. Forster's darts seem to do something. Jenny grabs the scepter. However, they only down the mummy temporarily, who stabs Forster with one of his pipes, and he pumps the poison into him, killing him. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
He reverse pipes Forster.
The saddest fate.
He comes pure poison.
Okay.
It's like that's the technical explanation for how the vampire erections work in Twilight. They fill with vampire venom.
Yeah, I'm glad clarified by Stephanie Meyer. It really warmed my heart when I heard that.
It's so funny. It's funnier than the fucking wizards just shitting themselves and then making it disappear.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so back to where we were. Yeah, the electric. Yeah, he gets the electric knife, which is this time a stiletto, which freezes the mummy in place for like a minute, so that Jenny can quickly read the knight's epitaph. And so they get pursued by the MI5 teams. The mummy controls an ambulance driver and catches up, taking down the team in no time.
Oh, man.
And so we get a chase through and over a double-decker bus. Mummy returns over, he did that. And going down into a tube station.
Wasn't there a double-decker bus in 2017s as well?
I don't remember.
London,
there was. Yeah, there was. They run through the street and it like rolls over.
Yeah, they go like through it or something, I think, maybe.
I don't remember. Is that? And then Jake Johnson goes, "Yeah, that was intense."
Yeah, yes, dude. I just watched this stupid movie. Yes, that's exactly what happens.
And that's not actually what he says. It's ADR'd in.
Yeah, wow, that was intense.
Yeah, you highlight that moment in the watch along.
It's super. Wow.
To give any credit to that movie, I think the idea of her creating a sandstorm by exploding the glass and turning it back into sand is kind of cool, but that's not clear at all from watching the movie.
No, it could have been much more interesting.
Instead of doing the big dumb face, which we have to do, even though that was only in the one version.
That was only in a Brendan Fraser movies. Damn, give him the heart attack powers again. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and so they like fight on like the train car. It's kind of like the first Hellboy, but worse.
Yep.
And she like speaks to him in Assyrian. So he grabs Tyler, asking where the key is. She speaks him in Assyrian to distract him, sprays him with the silver nitrate, and Tyler blasts him back out of the train with his shotgun, allowing them to get away for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
And they regroup in the next car of the train and begin to examine the relic. Like, I am honestly surprised it didn't turn to a passenger and go, "No ticket."
Goddamn, man.
And so Tyler's like, "I've seen this thing in my dreams. It's a key for the Bronze Arch." And Jenny reads the runes, saying they're the names of 3 of the 7 demons who guard the gate to the underworld, keeping the inhabitants of either world from crossing over, so no immigration, apparently.
Yep.
And the legend speaks of a gate, portal between the worlds. And Tyler's like, how the fuck do you know this? And so we get her
legend
backstory.
speaks. Oh, man.
Better than rewriting the history books.
Yep. Which is even better.
Yeah, they removed her from the history books, which didn't exist yet.
Just be books. They're normal books.
And so she's like, okay, my parents, they were interested in this legend, and they uncovered evidence that the gate might exist, and so they disappeared after leaving on an expedition. The only clue being her father's last entry in the journal. It's last land, the words last lands written over and over again. And she spent 18 years chasing this down. And when you find out the solution to the puzzle, oh my god, is it dumb.
It's the worst.
It makes her and the Temple Brotherhood look really stupid.
Like, why even add this? This is bad. Makes it worse.
And so, yeah, in that Tomb Raider script I mentioned, her whole arc is that her parents disappeared on an expedition and they never even found the bodies. And, oh my, how can I find closure? Blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing. And so then she shows Tyler her father's sketch of the gate. It looks exactly like it did in his dreams, which is coincidence. And Tyler thinks Ashurbanipal wants to open the gate to retrieve his soul and live again. Blood of the Chosen, this is where they explain the soul trading thing, which is better because it ups the stakes earlier.
I guess, but like it needed to be faster paced.
Yeah, the movie needed to be faster paced.
I guess so. Oh yeah, definitely, yes.
Even at 99 minutes.
Oh man.
And so here we go, she brushes it off, saying he can't open the gate, as there are more parts of the key that need to be found, and so she knows who has one of them. And so we go back to the electronics store. Diane has hacked into the subway's CCTV cameras, pulling up the footage of Tyler and Jenny fighting the mummy, which only appears as static. They spot them getting off at the station 12 blocks away, and Malik is like, Rabu, go after them, who instead of getting in the car, he sprints.
Yep.
And Tom Cruise is like, no, I'm the one who gets to run in this movie. He just sprints down the street. It's pretty funny. And so MI5 starts setting up blockades. Tyler buys a bag of SIM cards from like a drug dealer or whoever. A shady person, as the script calls him. It's like, Jenny, switch cards once she makes your call and throw it away. And she's like, but that's why you have a stolen phone so no one can trace it. And then he like explains all the technical stuff. Nobody cares. And so Rabu, still running, is just spontaneously joined by another dude named Sahura.
Yeah, right.
And Jenny finishes her call with Lorenzo, telling Tyler he's flying in with the relic and will send a car for them. And they're going to meet them at like this specific intersection. And so they move the whole thing about her working on the black market to here. Slightly different dialogue. It segues into Rabu attacking them. Rabu and Sahura attacking them. And so in this one, she blocks the dagger with her archaeologist's trowel, which I didn't even know she had.
Yeah, right. I'm glad I'm not crazy in thinking that.
She has all this fucking gear with her for no reason. And so Tyler, he fights both men, knocks them the fuck out. He smashes Rabu's face into the wall, and they run off, and they get picked up in Lorenzo's limo. Mm-hmm, and so this is where Tyler recognizes the 4-barred cross on the dagger from his dreams. And instead of the island, we get like a warehouse at his shipping company in London. So yeah, this has been scaled back a lot.
Boy, has it.
And Lorenzo recognizes the 4-barred cross again, Rebel Temple, blah, 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 except this time they're located outside Oxford. And there is no, like, him asking a convenient question to test his knowledge. He's like, nah, man, I know you're a soldier. I know how you carry yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an improvement.
Mm-hmm, big time.
Yeah, he produces this part of the key shaped like a dagger. The 2 parts slide together on their own. And then Lorenzo turns on them when Jenny asks to borrow the key, and he says, like, oh, you're working for another buyer, aren't you? Blah, blah, blah. And Tyler's thrown to the ground and beaten. And this is where she doesn't read his file in this verse. So this is where she learns about him allegedly killing his own men in the tomb. And it adds this nice bit of tension. It doesn't last long, but I like it.
Yeah, it's better. It is an improvement on what was there.
It builds their relationship. And then Tyler feels his hand start burning, and he starts laughing, saying he's here. And so the rain of blood is moved to a different point. He does the spider eating thing. And so Tyler crawls away with the key. Jenny and Tyler, they try and get away with the key as he bursts into the warehouse. They're hiding behind boxes. Lorenzo attacks him with a battle axe, but the mummy just takes it away, cuts his head off.
Yeah.
Bye, Lorenzo. Him being in this less is an improvement, I think.
Yeah.
And so Tyler notices the mummy smash a Victorian mirror in rage, which I thought was important, but it's really not, before he and Jenny run for the limo, using the massive car to bash the door open. He clings to the hood, which is basically the scene where he clings to the helicopter. Tyler shoots him through the windshield, and then they make him fall into the Thames River. And so they agree to go looking for the rebel temple near Oxford. And so she's still afraid of him because of what she heard. And he admits that what Lorenzo said was true and offers to fill her in on the truth. And Malik and his people arrive just in the nick of way too late at the warehouse.
Oh, yeah.
And they find a piece of the mummy's bandages on the dock. And he has a magic compass thing that he uses to track the mummy, but the needle just points at the river. And so we go under the river, and apparently the mummy has already walked all the way to the Thames estuary, which is the fucking opening of the river into the sea. And he finds the wreckage of a B-17 flying fortress from World War II. This what he does with this is actually really cool. Or do you disagree?
I don't know. I'm kind of processing it. It is, how do I put this? It is more in a similar vibe as the first script. It's a loosely collected series of action scenes, and I don't know what I would have expected out of I'm trying to imagine what is a better Mummy script or movie. And I don't know, this might be the best that Universal probably could have come up with at the time. I'm so disenfranchised with this stupid trilogy of one film.
2 scripts and a film.
2 scripts and a film, which, fun fact, has its own 3rd script. I'm sure it's the 17th version.
Well, there's 4 other writers who worked on and who have credits.
I wish I could see, how it's some little bits of dialogue are in the green. I wish I could see all the colors ascribed to all of the I need a chart. Kurtzman's in red, right? Spates is in green. I need everybody in all their things.
Orsi's are in blue.
Yeah, get it all a big rainbow. You read the page, you're yeah.
The dude who was in Dead Poet Society, his is in purple.
Yep. Yeah, perfect. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so we get a decent character building scene in the limo where he explains what happened to her, and he's thinking about he can't help but think about how he should have disobeyed the orders and just left.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says she knows how he feels. References a William Blake poem about carrying infinity in your hand, which her father loved. He's that tattoo I perved over earlier.
Yeah, it ties directly in. There's pretending that there's significance to that tattoo other than it just being a feature on a woman.
Because we like edgy girls with tattoos.
With midriff, mind you.
It reflected what archaeology meant to him, the way things live on after they're gone and stay with you. Yep. This sort of solidifies their bond. So it's cheesy as hell the way it's written, but it works in what it's trying to do mostly.
I don't even want to say it's better. It's not the worst, is what I'll say. I don't know. I have no investment.
Okay, I'm not gonna say it's good. I'm gonna say it's functional.
It is asking to be rewritten. That's it.
Okay.
Imagine rewriting a script to a script that is also in need of so many more rewrites. I feel like you failed.
And so they soon get borne down on by 3 black SUVs, forcing them to swerve off the road and park. And so Malik and his men emerge, force Tyler and Jenny out of the car, and they realize this must be the rebel temple.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a confrontation on the side of the road. It's just dialogue from the office building scenes in the other draft rewritten. Jenny hands over the key, and here Malik says they are descendants of the Assyrians, namely those who made Ashurbanipal into the mummy. So they just completely blow past the fact that the Assyrians didn't make people into mummies.
Yep.
One of the interesting parts of the first script, which is that, they were enslaved Egyptian priests, so there's still kind of a connection there.
Sure,
Gone.
Yeah.
I really don't like that, because it's just Spates put all this time into making it mostly add up and make sense, and they're just
they're that note at the end, fuck it.
I mean, it's a true Alex Kurtzman move.
We are gearing up to a scene very, very soon, very shortly, that I am so dreading, because
it's the Malik scene. The Malik scene.
Fucking Malik scene, dude, it's crazy. I hate to keep going off. I'm losing composure. I hate to keep bringing it up, but this time, because the first script, there's 3 pages of Malik exposition, which is a crime. You should be sentenced to screenwriter jail for that. Then this one, literally on page 81, which is barely halfway through, or barely over halfway through, I should say. There's literally a bit where Malik starts to exposit, and then Tyler, in voiceover, says, I want to know everything. Start at the beginning. Who was he? How did he end up in that tomb? I was you're now writing in other characters prompting him to go off on this massive deal.
You know what I'm reminded of?
What?
Jupiter Ascending.
Oh my god.
Where every one of Mila Kunis's lines is what is that?
Oh my god, she's just questions McGee.
She didn't even ask for exposition this time.
Yeah, he just started.
No! Imagine Eddie Redmayne as Ashurbanipal.
Oh my god, would it be better? Unclear.
No, because Sophia Boutella was actually good in that movie.
Yep, that's one of those.
Okay, so we see the mummy float inside the wrecked plane, inspect the bomb bay, because apparently the bombs are still in there, and he makes the plane rise up from the depths, which is cool.
Yep.
Which, come to think of it, they're kind of reusing a scene from Into Darkness.
Kinda, yeah. Forgot about that.
Like, wow, they really wanted an underwater flying vehicle. And so we get to the Rebel Temple. It's this large manor in the countryside, which probably would have been shot at the same place as Wayne Manor in Batman Begins.
Yep, identical.
And so we get Malik begins explaining the backstory.
Yep.
This time, Ashurbanipal wasn't satisfied with the breadth of his empire and wanted to conquer depth. He enslaved the Assyrian priests, which is bullshit because the other script was better, forcing them to discover the secret names of the 7 demons that guard the underworld, which I don't mind that change.
Mm-hmm.
He made them forge the gate, forge the key all by himself, because he's just a show-off like that, and had his guard entombed in a ring to protect his soul from the underworld. And the priests were left behind to summon him back, but they turned on him, buried the gate, and hid his body in the desert. I like the sun turning on him better.
Yeah.
Had his guard entombed, where am I? Trapped him in hell. They hid his body in the desert, which trapped him in hell. The dream of him watching the gate close was referencing this one. They hid the key for years until the Crusaders came and sacked their temple, breaking the key apart, which I don't know how they did it because it automatically goes back together, as we see, and taking the gate piece by piece back to Europe. And so they go to the temple house study where Belbassa is studying manuscripts, and Dion gets on a computer. The temple came to England looking for what was stolen, but trying to find the pieces without the specific names of the Crusaders proved difficult. And then Jenny mentions the blade came from Arwad, and the other piece came from Westminster Abbey, in the tomb of Sir Robert, Viscount Sutherland, and she remembers the entire epitaph.
Put it up. Sorry, the iPhone alarm finally went off. Audience, you're good. Pay attention now.
Dion finds him in their genealogical database and finds out they couldn't find the family because the line died out with them. They did not try hard enough.
Yeah, no, not at all.
And Jenny examines his profile since he was a Rosicrucian mystic, figures that the gate would have been sacred to him and he would have taken it home. And Dion pulls up the information, and it turns out his home was in Scotland at the long-ruined Lastland Castle. You took 18 years and didn't think 2 words in English meant the name of a castle.
It literally says its own name. Like, it says it. Like, how do you couldn't Google it? I bet the first result, if you search Lastland, is probably Lastland Cancel. Cancel, wow, I can't even talk anymore.
Castle. And really, Papa Halsey, you couldn't have written down a more detailed thing in your journal before you left.
Yeah.
Why even keep a journal? Sean Connery kept better notes than you in Last Crusade.
If you're
Shame
writing
on
it
you.
Over and over and over again, you have time to write it once well.
Dominic,
say like Lastland Castle is the way to go with all the stuff.
Yeah, Dominic West in that fucking Tomb Raider reboot took better notes than you.
Sure did.
Okay, but Sue, I hate that fucking twist. It's so stupid. Jenny realizes her parents actually found the gate, and so they all determined to go there as soon as possible. And so Belbassa finally speaks up, examines the scar, somewhat more detailed explanation about, the mummy can't taste anything, blah, blah, blah. They visit the library, final key pieces in a glass case. So when complete, it will command the 7 demons, and because it was made of black magic, is indestructible. So at least they explain why you don't just destroy the items.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler then gets armed with temple weapons, including consecrated swords, and there's a joke about how, because in the earlier script, he says, I trained in, a little bit of katana, a little of Screama stick, and a few other things, and this it goes I sold some Ginsu knives door to door when I was 12. Why the fuck is that stuff in here? It's not funny. And they don't even have an excuse, because this was before Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, barely. I bet the trailer was out.
Yeah, probably.
Probably post-Avengers, though, and they're like, ooh, Whedon formula. Let's just do that.
Ooga chaka.
Ooga.
Yeah. Except Whedon does that formula better.
Does. That's why Avengers is good and this is not.
Yeah. Okay, and so, it gets silver salt grenades, Kevlar paired with medallions, and machine guns with consecrated bullets. I fucking love that. That's so funny. with symbols etched in. I love the holy bullet. That's so fun. It's an actual folkloric thing. It is still funny.
It is very.
And so Tyler then feels the sting in his palm again, and oopsie, the B-17 floats down, and he starts hurling bombs at the house, catching everyone off guard, knocking most of them out. And so the Dead King enters the house, gets the key, completing the assembly, grabs Jenny while Tyler watches pinned under a beam. Tyler manages to extract himself from under the beam and gives chase, but the mummy has already taken off in the B-17, and he screams, "Oh! No!" Like Darth Vader.
Yep. Yeah, I need the Tom Cruise scream from the Mummy trailer.
And so we go to Jenny's point of view, where she sees her parents who encourage her to perform the ritual to open the gate and be reunited with them. And so we go to the inside of the B-17 and we see she's actually embracing the mummy, which is kind of creepy, and her eyes have split now.
Yes, they're doing the thing, and they kept it, and that's kind of cool.
The one thing they kept.
The one thing they kept, literally, of the whole script.
Yeah, so in the ruins of the temple library, they arm themselves, prepare for battle. Malik confirms the mummy needs Jenny to read the ritual as his priests are long dead, and there is no weird sexual thing here.
Nope.
Thank God. And so they'll be heading to the gate, and so Dion pulls up floor plans of Last Land Castle. And so there's another scene where they're like, "Oh yeah," where Tyler's like, "Why is the old guy coming along?" Blah blah blah, which is stupid. They all pack into the helicopter, head to the castle, and it's a nice moment where Tyler starts looking at them and viewing them as the new team, just giving him a second chance. It's not nearly enough is done with it, but in concept, I like it.
Sure, yeah.
And so the mummy takes Jenny to an ancient stone circle near the castle. How he knew this entrance was here, I don't know.
Yep.
And makes a passage with stairs open up in the ground. And so she follows what appear to be her parents, and it closes up just as Tyler and the Temple Brothers arrive in the nick of way too fucking late.
Mm-hmm.
And Dion's like, well, the castle cellar had a huge hearth inside it, so to go looking for the remains of the chimney, strongly built, the last thing to collapse. And so Jenny gets led through a labyrinth full of looted artifacts, the gate chamber, and the gate is made of concentric circles of iron and stone, which they said it was bronze earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oopsie.
Didn't even think about that. Wow.
There's an 8-pointed star on the floor with the demon runes at 7 of the points, and the gate at the 8th. Here's an 8-pointed suppository for you. A bronze pillar is at the center of it with a keyhole of sorts in the middle. 24 iron coffins surround it. And so the mummy, there's a lectern, the ritual is carved into it so he doesn't just have a scroll suddenly.
Right.
He makes her commence despite the resistance, sticks the key in the pedestal, ritual begins, summon the 7 demons through the gate. Tyler and the brothers uncover the chimney. Balbasa hangs out ink stamps, they descend down it. Jenny summons Asag, the Lord of Fire, begins summoning Lamashtu, the robber of cradles, and some of these are legitimate, demons in Mesopotamian mythology. Some they don't have anything to do with the underworld gate, but points for putting actual shit in here.
Sure, yeah, not bad. It reminds you of Shazam 2. They didn't really serve a purpose, but hey, cool mythology.
And so Tyler manages to descend down the chimney, but he drops the final stretch after the rope runs out.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Lamashtu was in the Constantine TV show.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow, I think I dropped off halfway through that season, the only season.
All right, so emerges from the hearth. Malik soon joins him, your favorite character. And not waiting, Tyler just tracks the mummy with his scar, eventually getting close enough to hear Jenny's chanting. They arrive in the gate chamber just as Jenny summons Rabisu, the blood drinker who's like a big fucking bat thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that its power flows into the mummy, and so 5 demons have been summoned. They skipped over 3 and 4.
Yeah, screw 'em.
And so Jenny starts to summon Pazuzu, the Lord of Storms, and he of Exorcist 2.
My favorite Pazuzu.
Who was also in Constantine.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Damn, they're digging deep.
And, the mummy has grown stronger. His shunts like claws. So instead of pulling them out, they become built-in weapons, like the ancient version of the gun arm.
Mm-hmm.
Not nearly as cool as the gun arm.
No, upgrade.
Yeah, from Upgrade. And more Temple Brothers flood into the room. He summons the warriors from their coffins to defend him, now transformed into Duwaku, the murdered ones, as the characters helpfully say.
Yes, thank you. The audience now understands.
And Tyler runs to Jenny, who attacks him, possessed by Ashurbanipal, taunts him about how he left his men to die, which I kind of like this as a character moment.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, not perfect, but it was a good addition.
Sure. Yeah, it definitely adds some layer.
Gets rid of the dumb Lorenzo fight.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, blah, blah. Where was I? Okay, Tyler gets the upper hand, stamps the ink seal on her titties.
You're not even kidding.
No, I'm not. Freeing Jenny from the possession, but not before the final demon, Kur, is summoned. And the mummy starts to speak the final spell to exchange their souls. Tyler leaps into action to stop him, while the brothers continue to fight the Duwaku. Jenny grabs the key in an attempt to stop the spell, but when he's about to kill Tyler, she stabs the mummy in the back with it, where he's like, oh yeah, this, pulls it out of his back, completes the spell.
Yeah.
Storm breaks out on the surface, rains blood over the castle, which is less impactful when there's no one actually there.
Yep.
The mummy is restored to human form, becoming Ashurbanipal again. Tyler begins to wither away.
Sure
As
does.
the shunts fall out of him, Ashurbanipal raises his hands in exaltation, but also lowers his guard. Tyler takes advantage of this and, using his last strength, tackles Ashurbanipal through the gate, going through with him.
Yep.
And Rabu tries to follow them, but bounces right off because apparently only the damned can pass. And so they're in the Hell's Landing. They come crashing down the upper stair to Hell's Landing, and where the odds are evened because Tyler has restored to strength and Ashurbanipal is stripped of his powers. Kind of like the Mummy Returns, where they strip Imhotep of his powers and make him just a dude.
Yeah, which is an interesting angle always when you want to do that stuff.
And so the king uses the key as a bludgeoning weapon, which is pretty funny. Back in the cellar, Balbassa tells Jenny that only one soul can return to the land of the living and that she should focus her thoughts on Tyler and call him back with the power of love.
I hate the power of love so
It's hip to be square.
Mm-hmm.
So Ashurbanipal seems to gain the upper hand, saying Tyler will suffer forever. He's ready to accept that, though, as the price for stopping him, and I like that beat. That's pretty cool. Tyler manages to duck the blow, grab the key away from Ashurbanipal, stab him in the heart, because he's just the biggest badass.
Sure is.
And so lightning strikes the castle, the Duwaku dissolve into ash like in the Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
Ashurbanipal is dragged down the stairs into hell by the black tendrils. The world around Tyler starts to collapse, and the room fills with dust and wind so much so he can't see the upper stairs. And he's ready to give up when a shadowy figure kneels down beside him and speaks in Jason's voice, saying his time is not up yet, pointing him in the right direction. And Tyler grabs onto what he thinks is Jason's hand, but it turns out it's Jenny's, who pulls him back to the cellar. So what this is really telling me is that he was deeply in love with Jason, too.
Oh, yeah, romantically. That's, the movie calling back. Remember that character that you spent like half a second with who immediately died? Yeah, now they're the most important part of the movie.
And the underworld gate goes dark. Tyler hands the key over to Malik, who, along with the remaining warriors, takes a knee before him and welcomes him to their ranks. So we go to the hearth room. The warriors, they all climb up the chimney. Reverse Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they came down the chimney to give Ashurbanipal the gift of death. And then Tyler and Jenny, they're the last to leave, and then she notices something in an alcove. Two skeletons in each other's arms, wearing archaeologist clothing. It's her parents. And she sees her mother's head is wrapped in a bandage, which means she was injured in a fall and her father wouldn't leave her. And he has a white stone in his hand, which he has used to draw the infinity symbol on the wall over and over again. And she gets her closure. I'm like, you could have climbed back up, gotten help, called someone.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is also identical to that Tomb Raider script, because there's a scene where she swims down into a lake, finds a crashed plane, and she apparently finds the corpses of her parents, but for some weird reason it doesn't show that part. Mm-hmm. And then she has her closure, and then soon after that there's a weird fucking scene where she crushes a millipede to death with her tits. Then we jump ahead to Istanbul Archaeology Museum.
Yep.
Where Tyler, Jenny, Malik, Dion, and other temple operatives arrive in a motorcade of SUVs, and Tyler's like, let's not stick around too long. We're still wanted,
Oh yeah, because it's not resolved, this movie.
Some relics have been recently donated by an anonymous collector and arrived last night, and the alarm shorted out soon after it was triggered. They have 30 minutes to investigate before the day shift arrives. And so, it's mentioned they're still wanted by Interpol. As they move through the building, they find ash on the lobby floor, wonder where security has gotten to. And then they get to this dark basement restoration lab, and they find the ash is laying on the floor in human outlines.
Yep.
Cool visual.
Yeah, not bad. I just said Shazam 2. It's the start of Shazam 2, where they're all made of ash.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
You gotta watch Shazam 2 to get all of my references that this script is clearly pointing to.
Well, I mean, maybe David Sandberg read this. I don't know. But they find an open sarcophagus with no body inside, and nearby a mad guard muttering in Arabic. And Malik translates this as "she is written," and Jenny, having read an inscription on the sarcophagus, tells them that it contained a queen, And then we get a shot of Istanbul's skyline at dawn as a dark, unnatural cloud forms on the horizon. And it ends.
Hear Johnny Depp's voice say aloha, and then it ends.
We get more teases for Sofia Boutella.
Yeah, Rumble in the Jungle sounds good. All right, yeah, we're done. Fuck this script. All right, so
I forgot about that line.
yeah, this script, I don't know. I initially went into this show with the opinion of this script is worse. I think they downgraded it. But now it's not so clear, because you're right. They do some, like, I guess, character building things with Tyler. But as much as they improve that, they also detract by making all these weird, cringy attempts at humor. And then Jenny's backstory with the parents. Just go back to the other version. I'd rather it be, like, a more boring, flat character. No pun intended. Than have it, like, this super long. Because you already got, like, pages and pages of explaining. I don't need more of that.
I'd rather have her be just this kind of somewhat amoral archaeologist.
Yeah, it feels weird to say, but like in the 2017 movie, I think that Jenny probably the best of the three Jennys.
And she has no personality.
She has none. She's just there to say she had sex with Tom Cruise once, and then just
for 15 seconds.
For 15 seconds, and then just action scenes, and then it ends. Like that's still the best version of Jenny, I guess. None of them are good.
I buy the relationship here more than I do in the movie.
Oh man, the movie's like
which
impossible.
Is saying something.
I'm really glad the movie didn't do a relationship between them. I think that was probably the best result, if anything.
Yeah, but then like he's redeemed because she thinks he's a good person and loves him now.
Yeah, that's hot bullshit. And on top of that, why did he? The whole logic of stabbing yourself with the evil devil scepter.
Oh my god. That doesn't make any sense. They don't explain that in the movie. You have to assume so much.
It's worse. They explain that won't work, and then it works, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's so annoying. Because if he broke the scepter, or what? I'm not going to dissect the logic of the movie. But point is, this script, I'm going to kind of put it on par. I know it's a cop-out, but it's about the same as the other one. It's like a 2 or 3 out of 10. I feel like they made so many revisions, and honest to God, I think like half of them are improvements, and half of them make it worse. You've turned in a script that is a revision that needs just as much revision work. It's as if you didn't do anything.
Yeah, so this gets turned in March 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I think, let me get back to my Wikipedia page.
Oh, sure.
An April 2016 release was slotted in November 2013, and Muschietti quit the movie in May 2014 because he didn't like the action-adventure approach. And then Orsi left in April from his producing duties because he had to focus on directing Star Trek 3, which didn't fucking happen. He was supposed to do a third movie, and they canceled it while sets were being constructed.
Right. And that became Beyond. Okay.
And then Kurtzman, he gets paired with Chris Morgan to turn it into a shared universe.
Yep.
And then they say June 24th, 2016.
I mean, it's a really easy script to turn into a shared universe because you already have a big shadow organization. And in some scripts, you have 2 shadow organizations.
Yes. And so they bring in Jenny Lumet, who wrote the Oscar-nominated film Rachel Getting Married, which got a Best Actress nomination for Anne Hathaway. Mm-hmm. And side note, she's the daughter of Sidney Lumet, who did a ton of like Oscar-nominated and winning films.
Yes, he's very talented.
Now, she got involved, and her and Kurtzman, they rewrote the script, turned the mummy into a woman without telling the studio. And the studio just went, yeah, we like that.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's the same concept.
And she wanted to humanize the antagonists, not having them be, quote, evil for the sake of evil, or, quote, not pining away for some lost love.
Like, so your plan to humanize the antagonist was to keep the exact same level of depth and swap the gender? Like, how does that change?
Yeah, it sounds like... I'd be curious to read that draft, though, because that's before Tom Cruise brought his people on.
Yeah, that would be interesting if you can find that.
So her, Kurtzman, and Spates ended up with story credits. Mm-hmm. Tom Cruise enters discussions in November 2015. Oh, so wow. I'm thinking one of these middle drafts has the Egyptian mummy in it.
Honestly, maybe.
Yeah, I'm thinking it has that, and then it got tailored. And it's so weird that the problems get entirely laid at Cruise's feet, because he brings in his own people on every movie, and like most of the time they turn out good.
Yeah. I mean, the elements for an interesting movie were here. Not the script. I hate the script, but like, and Like, when Tom Cruise comes on a project, he cares so much about the quality of the movie. Like, Mission Impossible has no business being as good as it is in, like, the 7th and 8th installments that they're making. But they
30 years later.
30 years later, like, this should not be a successful franchise, and yet it is. It's not doing, like, $1 billion, but it's making money, and it's doing really well critically. And they're fucking fun. And I feel like The Mummy, with him involved, could have and should have been at least anywhere near on par with a Mission Impossible movie or whatever he's making now. Top Gun Maverick was amazing. Like, that style where he's so caring about it.
The first Jack Reacher was actually really good.
Yeah, and I keep going back to that plane scene. And there's so much behind the scenes about, we shot this in 0G. It was an incredible experience. We went so crazy. We went hard with the behind the scenes. And then you watch the scene, and I bring it up all the time, but the editing and directing is as if it were faked. It's unremarkable. Like, they cut everything down, and it looks like junk. Like, you could have done so much there.
Yeah, and so Cruise comes on. Apparently, they offered both Mummy and Van Helsing to him, and he picked the Mummy. And that led to this stupid internet speculation where they said, Nick Morton's really going to be Van Helsing, guys.
Yeah, he's literally the devil at the end. Oh, man.
And what's interesting is people he brings in are also good writers most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
David Koepp wrote Jurassic Park. He did the Spielberg War of the Worlds, which I like. He did Crystal Skull, which I like. So David Koepp did stuff. There's Dylan Kutzman, who has written like nothing of interest outside of this.
Yep.
Who's mainly an actor who I swear either him or his publicist wrote his bio on IMDb because it is so congratulatory.
Dylan Kutzman is the most handsome, muscular man. It's the Tyler Colt 30s. Jack, better than you, handsome.
And then, but no, Macquarie worked on this, and so he's written a ton of great stuff, like Usual Suspects. He's done most of the Mission Impossibles at this point.
Yeah, he's known as like an A-list bankable star, but before Top Gun Maverick, I don't think any of his movies made $1 billion.
No, I'm surprised Maverick made that much.
Yeah, that was out of nowhere.
Yeah, and there's an alleged screen cap of Macquarie's Twitter DMs before he left Twitter, where someone is asking him, what advice would you have for like an aspiring screenwriter? And all he said is, don't write The Mummy. Which I want to know what fucking went down on behind the scenes on this, because I swear we don't know everything.
I did some digging. So the second trailer for my book is all about the Dark Universe, and it uses a lot of footage, and I found so much shit, because now we're like 6 years removed. I found so much stuff. I found Donna Langley, the chairman of Universal, talking about why it failed, and I found Alex Kurtzman in a podcast talking about how that was the biggest failure of his life. Like, there's so much material out there now that we're far away from the movie that's just like, wow, there's nobody involved is like trying to save it. They're all like, yeah, this is a hunk of shit.
Yeah, I think that sums up The Mummy. It came out and entire universe imploded like Galactus ate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're getting new Universal reboots that are just different versions of Dracula.
Yeah, they just flat out gave up. They're like, fuck it. Just, make whatever, don't connect it. And I think they learned the wrong lesson, because you can and should connect it, but you need to make good movies when you do that. I don't understand the studio mentality of like, oh, well, the last thing didn't work, so do nothing like it. It's like, no, the last thing didn't work for a certain number of reasons. That doesn't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Like, the concept of a shared universe of classic monsters is why they're the classic Universal monsters. That's why they're notable.
Bumblebee didn't make great money, so let's do Rise of the Beasts.
Let's do Rise of the Beasts. Yeah, exactly.
All right, so that's it for The Mummy, but stick around after the sound effect I'm going to play, because Jake's going to want to talk about something.
Only a little bit.
All right, so what are you going to talk about, Jake?
Well, in case it was not clear, I wrote a book. I've thought for a long time, because we watched the Monsterthon. This was like 5-6 years ago. I don't even know when we started. It was like
2018.
Yeah, we started the Monsterthon, where we watched every single Universal monster movie ever made. And we go down this journey. And every single time we're complaining about the same things, like, oh, the camera really doesn't move because it's an old-timey movie and it's like a play. Oh, everyone looks like Clark Gable because that's like the mustache vibe back then, all this stuff. But the
Drew Barrymore?
Yeah, Drew Barrymore era begun. But the main thing that really got me was the crossover films. Like, specifically Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. If you look at that film, if you look at the poster, just the poster of it, if you've never seen it at all, that poster promises such an awesome premise. And you watch that movie, and you get an hour of people talking, Lon Chaney just stumbling into a village, kind of drunk, and Frankenstein just thaws out of the ice, and they, in the last, 2 minutes, maybe, they strangle each other for a bit, and everything blows up, and it says the end. And it's like...
It's more Wolfman 2, because they cut so many Frankenstein scenes out.
They did. It is just the Wolfman Part 2, but it's almost a remake. And then House of Frankenstein is the one after it, and it's got all three. That's Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman. Okay, that's a big deal. The tagline is all together, and it lists them all. And that's, oh my god, that's like fucking NBA All-Stars of Universal Monsters.
I find those posters hilarious because they count generic mad scientist and random hunchback among the monsters.
Yeah, they put them all together. That counts as a monster, which is hilarious. But okay, that's a cool premise. Let's put them all together. It's great. And you watch that film. The first half is a solo Dracula film. And
it's like the second best Dracula movie, too.
It is. It's not a bad independent film, but it's not supposed to be an independent film. And he just dies halfway through. And then the second half, Frankenstein and Wolfman unthaw from ice, and they have a strangle contest for 2 minutes, and then it ends. It's like They don't even meet. They don't meet? I thought they were in the same room.
They're in the same room, and occasionally Talbot stands next to the monster while it's on the table. They don't even interact, ever.
Oh my god, so all three monsters don't interact with each other, which is the point of putting them together. And the only one that was mildly interesting was Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, because they're actually involved in the story together. Dracula is controlling Frankenstein, Wolfman's got to stop him. They're all part of the same story, and the same is not true of the rest of the movies. So I kept saying to myself, well, what if the crossovers were good movies? What if you maintained the gothic horror tone of Dracula and Frankenstein, like the Mary Shelley and Bram Stoker books, not just the movies? You maintain that tone, and you introduce these characters separately, and then when they converge, you have that interplay. You have them interacting with each other. I mean, think about all the monster mashes in your life. Like, what? Hotel Transylvania and Abbott and Costello? Those are jokes, literally. And
Monster Squad.
And that's fine. I'm glad those exist. But every single time there's a monster mash, it's played off for comedy. And I'm sick of that. So I was
Munsters.
The Munsters. Oh my god, the Munsters. The movie, by the way. I don't mind
the
show.
Worst movie of last year.
Easy worst movie. And I finally said, fuck it. I've been complaining about 100 years worth of cinema of them not doing what they could be doing to make a good movie. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I decided to write a book. The book is called The Devil's League. I got the title because The Devil's Brood was the original title for House of Frankenstein. And
yes, it was. And they were going to have more monsters in it, too.
They're going to have even more, which would have been awesome if they'd actually done that.
The Mummy, the Ape Woman, and the Invisible Man.
Please throw them in. Ape Woman got 3 movies. You couldn't have put her in one house. Anyway, you only made 2 house movies, mind you. But in any case, the concepts of the book, I really wanted to focus on the fact that they're all independent stories with their own lives, and then they converge. So the independent stories in the book are throughout human history, going back as far as thousands of years ago, but throughout historical events that humans have done and been part of. There's a werewolf in the 60s during Vietnam, or there's a vampire in ancient Greece. There's so many aspects to this, and there's original ones too that aren't even general myths or folklore like that. I've created some as well. And the premise of the book is that it all could have happened. So there's no there's no mummy storming everything with a big sandstorm and a big face that goes wah, because that'd be on every news story ever. I want it to be as if they could be existing right now, which is, I think, more interesting. But they all converge. It is, by my account, it is the movie that, had Universal made a movie like this in 40s or the 80s or the right now, that would be your money. That would be your fresh and Rotten Tomatoes. That would be your not a bomb like Renfield or Voyage of the Demeter, although I like both of those movies. This could be the way in. This is it. And I just feel I feel so strongly about this because I've spent 73 movies and videos on YouTube in the playlist of Universal Monsterthon just sitting there waiting for this to happen. And I've seen every single one. I've seen fucking Monster Squad, which isn't even Universal. I've seen House of the Wolfman, the fan film, and they fuck it up the same as the House movies. I guess it's faithful. I guess it's like an honorary adaptation because, damn, they did the same mistakes. And I just finally wanted to see a story that interwove all of them. And mind you, if you've ever wanted, this is my final spiel because I've gone off a little bit long. This is my final spiel. If you've ever wanted a Universal monster movie with perfect attendance, this is it. And I cannot find it anywhere else, whether it's a movie, a book, a TV show. It just does not exist, except for Hotel Transylvania because it's a comedy. This is
Van Helsing?
Van Helsing, they got a lot. It's one of the closest ones. They got like 4 types of monster, maybe 5. But that's still not perfect attendance, you know? Where's Invisible Man? Where's the Mummy? Where's Creature, who almost was in it?
Invisible Man could be in every scene, you just don't know it.
Yeah, he's just standing right in front of the camera the whole time. I challenge you, good sir, if you read this book and there's a Universal monster you have in mind that isn't there, I challenge you to find
The
it.
Creeper?
He's there, baby. He's there. Now, granted, here's the thing. I obviously don't own Universal, so I don't have the rights. I'm not making a fan project. That's not what this is.
Well, those Creeper movies are public domain now, I think.
Yeah, I could rip them off if I wanted to, but I did none of that for any of the movies. I made original characters. There's just a vampire king who takes very heavily after Bram Stoker's interpretations. The rules of the vampires are almost identical, which means that sunlight doesn't blow them up like every movie you've ever seen.
Okay, good.
Yeah, right? It's the first one. But because Bram Stoker didn't do that. There's an artificial person who was created by a scientist. There's things like that, but they're all original characters. They're all together. This is the movie that I've been waiting to have exist. It is a book. It is 300 and some odd pages, and the last chapter is a bunch of artwork. It's a journal written by one of the characters about him hunting the monsters. So he's got all the details about the lore and stuff, and that took so long to do. And I'm so proud
I can
of it.
imagine.
Oh,
now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pre-order link down below, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your QR code and put it in the thumbnail.
Oh, hell yeah! Please, thank you.
I will try. If that works, I'll do it.
Oh, thank you. That's perfect. That way, if you get it recommended, you can be like, "What's this?" and pull out your phone.
So if you're wondering why there's a giant QR code in the middle of the screen, viewers, that's why.
Thank you so much.
All right, pre-order Jake's book. With that, bye.
Bye. Oh, and now I get to hit stop on this.